News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM. My name is Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Hump Day to you, my little buddy.
Crudy, happy Hump Day, loving Wednesdays. It's a nasty, nasty day outside, certainly in Madison. A little worse, it's coming this way to Milwaukee. So, folks, just cuddle up next to your radio speakers and join us for the next 3 hours for the best damn radio show ever.
Dominic, the ground's already white here in Madison. The snow is already covering the grass. And some of it's sticking to the roads. I'm not happy. Also, I feel like, I hate to correct our own newscast here, but not only will there be a Bernie rally on Friday, and it's not going to snow, although it could be cooler, but you can stay warm on Friday too, because we're broadcasting that very rally live right here on WRRD 1510 AM and WTTN 1580 AM. We'll be going live, Dom, you and I, at 3 o'clock Central Time. And the Bernie rally, perhaps with limited commercial interruptions. Thank you to our friends, Teamsters Local 200, lead sponsors. But Dominic, Bernie's going on the stage sometime after 5. We'll do it with limited commercial interruptions. I will not interrupt Bernie with commercialism. Although I hear he is a millionaire, Dom. He would understand, right?
Got to make that money.
Dominic, here in the state of Wisconsin, we've got a couple of different headlines. The news did point out Judge Lisa Neubauer, she has conceded the race. There will be no recount. I think primarily because there was no interest in financing a recount, Dom. $2.5 million, the price tag. Her campaign didn't raise that much money in the initial race.
And 6,000 votes, that's a big ask and a big risk, even if the money was there.
Judge Higdorn, now soon to be Justice Higdorn, had called it an insurmountable lead. Well, Judge Neubauer did call Higdorn, and she did send supporters this letter earlier today. Dear friend, I called Judge Higdorn today and wished him the best in his tenure on the state's highest court. Judge Higdorn said that he was running to get partisan influences out of our courts, and I hope he lives up to his promise. Our courts are strongest when politics are set aside and we follow the law regardless of personal views. I want you to know that I'm deeply proud of the way we ran this campaign, and I'm deeply grateful for your work, your energy, and your commitment. And I'll continue my service to the Court of Appeals, and together we will make Wisconsin stronger. I know this result isn't easy to accept. As soon as Higdorn's off the court, be it 10, 20, 30 years from now, Dom, then I'll be over it. I'll put it in the rear view then, when Higdorn's no longer a justice. I read on. If you want to chat or send us your thoughts, we'll be reading and responding to replies to this email and would welcome your message. I'm not sure if they would, Dom.
I think you made your thoughts very clear on this topic.
I could reinforce with an email. Just to follow up on my earlier statements on the radio, I'd like to send you this email.
Well,
I'm done.
Maybe send a link to the previous podcast. They're available for free.
I hear that. The margin of the race was razor thin, and we saw near record turnout across the state. Hundreds of thousands of you voted for fair, impartial, and independent courts. What about the other hundreds of thousands? You voted for Higdorn. I read on, and that's why we had to ensure the vote count was accurate and observe the county canvass process, which has now been largely completed. I hope future races see less influence from special interest. And more than Dom, this sticks in my craw a little bit. Let's not forget, Neubauer led the special interest money race 14-1 until, about 10 days before the end of the race? I read on. I hope future races see less influence from special interest, and with more than $1 million poured in against me with partisan, false claims in the final week alone, it's not hard to imagine that is what made the difference. Again, I am deeply appreciative of all you did to support this campaign. Now we go forward and continue the work to strengthen our justice system. Thank you. Lisa, it signed Dom, Lisa Neubauer, Judge Lisa Neubauer, Chief Judge of the Appellate Court of the state of Wisconsin, but not a Supreme Court Justice, Dom, sadly.
Yes, unfortunately. Thank you. You're welcome, Lisa. Maybe you should have come around a little more, but look forward to perhaps the next Wisconsin Supreme Court election
Dominic,
race.
There's someone that always comes round when there's Marquette University Law School polling, like today.
Yeah.
And his name's Charles Franklin. He is the director of the same said Marquette University Law School poll. He will join us in the happy hour today, 5:06. But I got to say, Charles, this polling would have been really timely like 10 days ago.
Why?
You know, maybe the Neubauer team would have had a clearer sense that, you know, the state of Wisconsin's still damn purple with sort of a tinge of red. At least it turned out that way. Also, Dom, you have booked a fine author. He's appearing in Milwaukee today, but he's appearing on this show at 4:45. He is Dan Kaufman, author of The Fall of Wisconsin and contributor to The New Yorker and The New York Times. Joins us at 4:45. He's going to be at UW Milwaukee tonight, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Golda Meir Library, 4th floor conference center. So hear him here first, Dom. 4:45. Charles Franklin, 5:05, and that begs us to start with a little bit of polling today, Dom.
What are the highlights, Crudy? Went through this a little bit. I know what my highlight was. What was your one takeaway before we dive into this at 5 o'clock?
Well, I got two takeaways, man. I'm going to be creative. First and foremost, Donald Trump, approval, disapproval. He's at -6. He's at approval of 46, a disapproval of 52. And that leads yours truly to think Charles Franklin has massively oversampled
Republicans?
Yes,
Oh,
possibly, maybe.
We'll find out.
Anyways, that was one of my takeaways. Dom, what was your takeaway?
Also, another fine polling question from Charles Franklin regarding state issues, Crudy. This one hits home. The marijuana question. 59% of voters say marijuana use should be legal. 59%, while 36% say it should not be legal. And this is the headline. A substantial majority, Crudy, 83%, say use of marijuana for medical purposes with a doctor's prescription should be legal. Only 12% saying it should not be.
Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support, Tom.
He doesn't, not at 83%.
That is a wowing number. I mean, we saw referendums successful statewide, well, more accurate, advisory referendums in many different places across the state. That was not a statewide referendum, but like 16 communities polled either recreational or medicinal marijuana, and we saw big support numbers. But this one, perhaps the biggest of all, 83% support for medicinal, 12% opposed, and I would think, who are the 12%?
No, I don't see it. I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Maybe.
Apparently, it's Scott Fitzgerald and a couple of his buddies down at the bar.
Yeah, they bring a friend of theirs, and they each bring 3 friends, and they each bring 3 friends, and now you got 12% that would rather drink themselves to death than enjoy a little marijuana.
You know, Republicans great at pickling themselves, Dom. Here's some other polling. The Democratic field, obviously, it is a presidential. Dominic, we're going to have Bernie Sanders. We're going to broadcast it live, as I mentioned, this Friday. Also, we're going to Miami, baby. We're going down to the first Dem presidential debate. That's coming up in June, and that seems like, man, that's a long ways away. Not really.
No, not really.
Not really. It's coming up in a couple months. They're already starting to jack the airline tickets. But let me tell you, we've got new polling in the state of Wisconsin. And if there is a singular candidate on the rise, it's my guy, Bernie Sanders. Hashtag feel the burn. Bernie Sanders, in the most current polling, leads the Democratic field in the state of Wisconsin. 32% Joe Biden, undeclared at this point, 29% Elizabeth Warren, 17%. A strong showing for Warren. I've always loved me some Elizabeth Warren. I think she would have done great had she jumped in the last time through, and I think she'll make a great candidate. But right now in the state of Wisconsin, we are feeling the burn. A few more candidates. Kamala Harris, 11%. Beto O'Rourke, the young RFK look-alike, sound-alike kid from El Paso, he's at 10%. Cory Booker, 9%. Oh, here she is. Amy Klobuchar from neighboring Minnesota at 8%. Pete Buttigieg, or Boot-Edge, depending on your pronunciation preference. You know, his husband says it differently than he does. If they can't come to consensus in the family, right, I'm not going to feel bad. Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete, there you go.
At 7% support here in Wisconsin. Julian Castro at 4%. Jay Inslee, the Washington governor, 2%. Kirsten Gillibrand, saw her town hall in part last night on CNN. She is at 2%. And Hickenlooper, the former Colorado governor, at 1%. According to the newest Marquette University Law School poll. But my takeaway, feel the burn, baby. Bernie Sanders is up 9% since what, the last poll?
Yeah, January polling had Biden at 32 and Sanders at 23. And again, this polling today came out Sanders at 32 and Biden at 29.
Bernie going up the charts with the bullet, Tom. The only thing he could do to be more popular in the very shortest of run, Bernie appear on this fine program between now and Friday, man. I've invited the campaign. Hopefully they can make time. No promises, they told me. But, man, I'd sure be happy, Bernie. I hope you're listening.
All you can do is ask.
I can ask, and I can support Bernie. And if he comes on this program, I suspect he'll be at 42% in the next poll. For surezies.
For sure. Guaranteed.
Feel the burn. So, Bernie on the rise. Bernie on the move, and today, Dom, and we'll talk about lots of stuff on this big program. Bernie led again with Medicare for All. And you could think, well, Bernie just came up with this bright idea for his 2016 presidential campaign. No, I was watching earlier today on CNN. A woman talked about Bernie Sanders' 1993 proposal, right. Medicare for All. Yeah. He's consistent, man. He doesn't change with the electoral winds. Come back with us, nor do we. Although the weather, it changes quite rapidly here in the state of Wisconsin. We do not change. Not rapidly. We evolve very slowly. And Republicans not at all. 844-967-2789. Always a better show when you participate. The snow's blowing. Be careful out there on the roads today. Drive safe. Give a little extra time. Or better yet, just, cuddle up with the speaker and the Devil's Advocates on the radio. You know you want to. It'll make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. We're like comfort food for the soul.
And we promise not to sniff your hair.
No promises. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. You perhaps at 844-967-2789. Gonna be a big day.
The number's probably 28, 29, as high as 35. In fact, I even heard recently 42%.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Hey, you want to get high, man?
No, I don't see it. I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Oh, it looks good on you, though.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545 Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
This dude is a clown, and the Republicans are traitors, regardless of whatever they say. The Democrats are one thing. I'm not a Dem, obviously, but the Republicans are traitors because they just wanted to win an election.
It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know.
God bless you. Continue what you're doing, brother.
Thank you.
I love your show, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon on Real Resistance Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube. We are on Twitter at Devil Radio. We're also streaming on the Facebook. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we've got some early innovators today. We got some calls holding, including a young lady, a friend of ours, who wants to correct me, apparently, on my enunciation. Erica Flynn, welcome back. What do you got for us?
I was just calling because it's Kamala. Like you're saying the pronunciation.
That's not how she said it to me.
Kamala. That's it.
Kamala. All right, Erica, how about...
Have you ever met her?
Well, I listened to her book, and she says her name, and I've heard her describe it that way, that you think comma and then la, Kamala.
When she said it to me, it was Kamala. Or that's what I heard anyways.
Okay, Erica, since I got to ask you, though, Pete Buttigieg.
You did it. You said it right the first time.
Which one?
The first,
Buttigieg.
That's not how his husband says it. And on the campaign, apparently
at this... The way Mayor Pete describes it is either way you get to the same place. So Mayor Pete isn't fussed, so I don't think we should be either.
Like I said, Kamala.
All right, real quick, Erica Flynn, what's your take right now? Do you have a favorite for on the Democratic side? A lot of people running.
There are a lot of people running, and I have a couple of people that are kind of in my favorites category. Another group of people who are in the really, I hope not category. I do like Mayor Pete. I like Elizabeth Warren. I do like Kamala Harris. I'm still doing a lot of research, and it's really early. But I would encourage people to, listen to podcasts with the interviews, or start reading some newspapers, and because there are a lot of candidates, and we have to make a really good choice coming up to 2020.
Erica, I always thought it was most important which ones came on the Devil's Advocates radio show. Yeah. Now, we have had an opportunity to meet or broadcast at, many of these candidates came as surrogates for Tony Evers in the fall, including, now I got to think about how to say it, Kamala Harris.
Kamala with a la, right, Erica?
Did I get it that time?
You got it, yes.
Kamala Harris, I had the opportunity to meet her. Elizabeth Warren was in town. Joe Biden was in town. Bernie Sanders was in town. Of course, we've had Beto O'Rourke. We've had Klobuchar, Julian Castro this weekend. Bernie Sanders again this Friday. How important is it that they come round?
Well, I would love them to be on your radio show. That'd be fantastic.
Well, I don't mean on our show. I mean more more importantly, come around to our state, Erica. That's just my personal.
It is very, it is very important, and I know Hillary Clinton gets a lot of grief because she didn't come to Wisconsin. And to be fair, I'll just bring it up one time. She was supposed to come to Wisconsin, and that was the weekend of the Pulse shooting in Orlando, Florida, and so it was moved. It was canceled. And there just wasn't another time for her to come. So that was obviously a tragedy for our nation that Pulse happened. But that's why she didn't come to Wisconsin. But,
and technically, she did come twice. She came in 2015. Bernie Sanders had that barn burner of a rally in Madison. She came to UW Milwaukee. Dom and I broadcast that live. And she did sort of a private event on the UW campus. I remember our pal Dave Weigel, the Washington Post, was there. We broadcast that one live, but only about 250 in attendance. But you're right, Erica. We had hoped, and we had credentials to broadcast Obama with Hillary Clinton. That would have been a hell of a rally. That one was supposed to be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And, of course, the tragedy in Orlando, the Pulse nightclub shooting. That became a reschedule that just never became a priority for the campaign to get it back on the calendar. And you may not get Obama back on the calendar, but Donald Trump found time to get to Wisconsin. And I don't like Donald Trump, but I will tell you this. As a billionaire, man of leisure, he found a lot of time to come and campaign in our backyard. I mean, he was all over the state of Wisconsin. Hell, he was in like every city with a W, maybe excluding Waunakee. He got the rest.
Right. He did. He worked hard. He came through the Midwest a lot. He came to Wisconsin a lot. He came to Wisconsin too much because we went to a lot of those rallies.
Guess where he's going next, Dom?
Minnesota.
Tax day. Does that mean he's going to release his taxes in Minnesota?
Hey, he totally would if they were not under audit.
Well, as I like to say, Minnesota, you're in the barrel next. Donald Trump coming to town April 15th. Not sure which town, but Huckabee Sanders announced Donald Trump will have a rally in Minnesota on Monday. I bet you we'll have a better time this Friday. Bernie Sanders will do it live. Right here, WRRD, WTTN, 1510, 1580. And, of course, always streaming live at realresistanceradio.com and domandcroot.com, although I prefer crootandtom.com. More of your calls next, 844-967-2789. The political party line is open and toll-free.
Want to be more presidential? Tweet the Devil's Advocates at Devil Radio.
Actually, it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Wisconsin. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com. Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
You know, I thought it was really important to share with people my diagnosis of cancer. The Affordable Care Act is the kind of thing that's going to keep me alive for a long, long time. Why? Because they can't throw me off of my health insurance simply because I have cancer. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare provided for that. They can't raise my rates and my premiums so high beyond community rating and beyond age rating. Obamacare created that. They can't cap the amount of benefits that they are willing to give me over a lifetime. I have medicine that costs $18,000 a month. They can't force me to pay out-of-pocket costs beyond a certain point. All of that happened because of Obamacare. Thank you, Obama.
You can listen to the Devil's Advocates interviews at domandcrute.com. Click on the podcast tab and select interviews. That's domandcrute.com.
For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. Now that a federal appeals court judge ruled with the Evers administration yesterday, the governor and the attorney general have pulled Wisconsin from all lawsuits against the Affordable Care Act. The Devil's Advocates will be at the Bernie rally in Madison this Friday. The event is set to start at 5 p.m. at James Madison Park at 614 East Gorham Street. The Bucks have been off since Sunday. They play their last game of the regular season tonight at the Forum against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The first round of the playoffs starts this weekend. The Bucks could face the Pistons, the Magic, or the Hornets. And the Brewers lost to the Angels last night. The final score was 11-8. They play the final game of that three-game series tonight in Los Angeles. April is National Poetry Month, and the committee to select Milwaukee's next poet laureate made its final vote yesterday. The results will be made public later this month. My name is Keith Gostad.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It is a wet, cold, and snowy hump day, Dom. That's not good.
No, it's not good, but we have lots to talk about, and it's warm in the studio, so we'll be all right.
I'll be wearing the long johns Friday to the Bernie rally in Madison. Supposed to be like 45.
I hope
a little windy on the lakefront.
I hope you wear more than long johns, Crudy.
Well, maybe a Bernie t-shirt or something. Or maybe I'll just go streaking the quad. Got to get famouser somehow.
Right.
Dominic, big show we've got today. We've got Dan Kaufman. He's the author of The Fall of Wisconsin and contributor to the New Yorker and the New York Times. Of course, Charles Franklin, director, Marquette University Law School poll after 5. And we're going to get to the phones right now because we like it when you participate. 844.
Everybody's doing it.
967-2789. Call now. Everybody's doing it, like Brock from Horicon. Welcome, Brock. You ever streak the quad?
Allegedly.
What's your thought today, my friend?
So if I got to hear for one more week about the possibility of Joe Biden, I'm about ready to throw up. He's not in the race. He isn't going to be in the race. If he gets in the race, I think Bernie is going to smoke him. I don't know how. There's too many votes in his past when it comes to Mr. Biden that just do not bode well for Democrats or people of any race. There's some minimum term limits and some of that crap from the Clinton administration. I don't know. I don't see how he gets through. And then I don't know how he would stack up against Trump. I think it would be I don't think he'd have a hard time, but I think Bernie Sanders would have an easier time. So I'm hoping it's Bernie or bust. I invited some of my Trump-supporting friends to come back under the tent. They said, we made a mistake. I said, there's plenty of room in Bernie's tent. Just come on in. Make yourselves at home. Maybe he's got something to offer. And And I think I'm excited about going to the rally, and I hope some of the people that voted for Trump and see it for the mistake that it was are able to come in out of the cold. I'm willing to welcome you into the Bernie tent, so come in and give them a try, and I'll see you guys Friday in Madison. I am feeling the burn later.
Awesome. Brock, real quick, don't hang up. Oh, he is a quick hanger-upper. Boom. he said goodbye. He dropped the mic, and he was gone.
What do you think, just to his point quickly, regarding Biden? I mean, obviously, he was a vice president. He's been around a long time. I mean, he's at the top of every poll, top 1, 2. He's up there. Hasn't even declared yet. What do you think the attraction is, specifically?
To Biden?
Yeah.
Former vice president. Very qualified. Certainly he's got foreign policy.
Dan Quayle was a former vice president. I don't know if that necessarily qualifies. I mean, beyond that, right? Okay,
yeah,
I get that.
Dan Quayle, yes, okay.
Okay, so, again,
I can't spell
that.
potato either. I'm not going to hold that against the guy, per se. I am not a Joe Biden supporter. I mean, I like Joe. If Joe wins the nomination, I'll certainly become a Joe Biden supporter.
Sure, of course.
I don't have any major objections to the candidacy of Joe Biden. He never sniffed my hair. That's not a problem for me. I would say people, and, I look at my wife as a barometer sometimes, and she has fallen off the Bernie bandwagon, let's say. She no longer feels the burn, not in the same way. She was supportive like I was supportive for Bernie in 2016. But now with the opportunity and, reconsideration, I think she's more in the Biden camp. Although she would like to see Biden paired with, a young upstart like Beto O'Rourke, let's say. She thinks that'd be a hell of a ticket. I don't disagree with her. It would certainly bring a certain amount of passion. But I think Biden is more of a reflection of the sentiment of the establishment of the Democratic Party.
The older, established, traditional Democratic Party.
Literally, the older voters, the establishment of the Democratic Party, and I would say that is much like the electorate that Hillary Clinton was seeking. And perhaps Joe will do a better job with the disaffected Midwestern white voters that Hillary Clinton really didn't succeed with. Of course, Hillary Clinton, we talk about it all the time, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and especially the state of Wisconsin. Had she won, 2 of those 3 states, she'd be the president. Joe Biden, Joe from Scranton, PA, street fighting Joe. Well, perhaps he would do better, and perhaps he would do enough to beat Donald Trump. But I think it would still be a coin flip in the state of Wisconsin. I still think, I think I've been accusing Charles Franklin of oversampling Republicans for years. And I'm starting to become convinced, no, there's just too damn many Republicans
there's
in the
actually
state of Wisconsin. All the good Dems that had options, they moved away. I should have, but they did. But anyways, Dom, so Joe Biden, I think he's just a little too establishment. For me, I'd like to expand the tent. I'd like to bring back some disaffected Dems, let's call them some Reagan Dems, some working class Dems, some union labor sort of Dems that really haven't been a part of this ticket for some time. And the fact that Bernie is so strong in the state of Wisconsin, and it's not that Bernie is an infallible candidate. I mean, Bernie's got problems. There's only one infallible man. That's me, of course. No, I mean Jesus. But, biblically speaking, Dom, I know...
I didn't know God was a man. I didn't know you Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God. But please continue.
Just me then. I'm the only infallible one.
Yeah, come on. I mean, every
candidate's going to have their shortcoming. Bernie Sanders can be very cantankerous, not really personally a charming guy. I've met Bernie. If you ask him the right question, he smiles at you. If you ask him the wrong question, he interrupts you and wants to slap you upside the back of the head. He's not a bundle of warmth, but the supporters, you look at the people that support these respective candidates, and Bernie Sanders it's like a love fest going to a Bernie Sanders rally. I hope it is something similar on Friday. I have every expectation it will be, and hopefully a few more of our audience will either attend in person or, more importantly, listen along on WRD 1510 AM, WTTN 1580. Let's get back. More people waiting on the phones. Andy from Beaver Dam, you're next. Welcome, sir.
Well, Crudy, I tell you, I did manage to get into the polls with my prosthetic and vote for Lisa Neubauer, but as much good as it did, I don't know, because Dodge County is pretty red. But the other question I had for you is, what's the status on 92.7? I tried it out on my Sony here.
It's not there yet.
It's not there yet because I can hear some pop music on that channel. But I figured
I'm not sure where you're located. I'm not clear whether or not that signal will reach up to Beaver Dam. You have the benefit currently of two of the finest AM signals of all time. Beaver Dam is covered by both 1510 AM and 1580, the 92.7 FM. We're just going to tell people May 1st. I'm tired of losing credibility, waiting for a Part 2 ship from a factory in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the guy who's engineering my part, he's at the NAB convention in Las Vegas this week. So it's sitting on the engineering range, literally. And the guy's like, I got to work on this little part. I'll do that next week when I come back from the convention. So the day the part gets here, we've got, I've already signed a contract with an install team. Here's the great news, sir. The day the part gets here and the guy lifts it up and attaches it 350 feet up a flagpole, it is operational from that day, Andy. We don't have to ask the FCC. We don't have to do anything more than get the part here shipped out to us and have it attached at the top of the flagpole. Now, there are a few steps, electronic stuff I'll spare you on the ground that are going to occur next week. But, Andy, if this thing doesn't happen here in the next week or 10 days, I'm going to start losing my freaking mind. I'm not a patient man, sir.
Well, is that flagpole is that in Sun Prairie?
It is. It's on Brooks Drive in Sun Prairie. Ironically, it's the very same flagpole that contains the Mike 92.1, the former progressive talk station in the state of Wisconsin.
How ironic.
It's also got, here's how you can tell. Up where you're at, and I have no idea what you're going to hear, Andy, but if you want to test it out, 104.7 has effectively the same power as me. It's on the same tower as me, and it nearly mirrors my effective pattern. So if you can hear 104.7, it's some Dominic Lovin church station. But if you can hear that, that will be a pretty good reflection of the sort of signal that 92.7 will be.
Well, that sounds encouraging. Needless to say, man. So,
you know what's really
anyway,
encouraging, Andy? We got sponsors lining up to sponsor a station that does not yet exist. That is more than encouraging. I mean, it's, anyone that's listened to me whine on the radio in Milwaukee the last couple of years, it's been a tough road for me. And I am overwhelmed with enthusiasm because the people here in Madison are dying to get this signal back, Andy. People want what we give them. And it's not, it's not Dom and Crute. It's the fact that we pay attention to the backyard politics here in the state of Wisconsin. That's what they want. They want a voice. People want to have a show they can call in and talk to. And Andy, by God, 92.7 will be on a flagpole by May 1st, or I'll chase Dom up that flagpole.
Well, it's been a long haul since October of 2016, since iHeart pulled the plug on you guys, and I'm spoiled by that FM. Like you say, 1510, 1580 are all good, but there's nothing that beats FM.
I do know.
It just comes in like a bell. We'll find out.
I do know, and it's the same signal at night, and that of course is our disadvantage, Andy, is we don't have the nighttime signals. Appreciate your call. 844-967-2789. Another frequent flyer. It's David from Mequon. Welcome back, David. What's your thought today?
Hey guys. Really quickly, in regards to Joe Biden, he's like Teflon. I mean, you mean literally, he's kind of like a lot like Trump, like in that sense.
Well, I was going to say, you cannot be pointing at my guy when Donald Trump is got corruption oozing out of every pore and somehow escapes being held accountable.
Let's put it this way: Trump is super Teflon, and Biden is just regular Teflon. But to your point, though, with Bernie Sanders, it's either going to be Bernie or it's going to be Joe. It's going to be one of the two.
Coming out of Wisconsin or as the nominee?
I think.
Out of Wisconsin or winning nationally as the nominee, to your opinion, David?
I think for Wisconsin, yes. Yeah, either Bernie or Joe.
If I had to pick, and it's a year out. I mean, we're just under a year to Election Day in the state of Wisconsin. I have no doubt in my heart or mind Bernie Sanders will win the state of Wisconsin primary, the presidential.
Yeah. As far as, going forward, there's a lot, obviously. I mean, it's like half the country now is running for president on that side. But in all seriousness, I mean, there's a lot that can happen between now and then, and it's we'll see what happens. But I have to say I'm extremely. I mean, as far as fundraising, Sanders outdoes them all. I mean, the amount of money I think he's raised, what, 38 million, 40 million.
Not quite that much yet. He had 28 million cash on hand, 18 million raised in the first quarter. That vastly dwarfs everybody else. I think Elizabeth Warren announced today $6 million raised in the quarter, I believe. No one else, I think, more than maybe 12. I thought Kamala Harris had like 12 million.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's obviously that sense, where he's got a connection. I recognize it, where Bernie's got a connection, like Trump has got a connection to a lot of people, but Bernie has a connection that it's a solid core, and they're going to be very committed, and whereas the other candidates, they don't have that groundswell, that same group of people. Are kind of scattered, I think, at that point, because they're fighting over crumbs, and that's just my opinion from looking at it from the other side. But
David, I would say this: if we have a spring snowstorm next April 7th, people are still coming out to vote for Bernie Sanders, no doubt in my mind. And I think Bernie, part of the reason why so many people feel so affectionately for his candidacy. It's not the man. It's not the cult of personality. All the guy ever talks about is policy. He doesn't say, I'm the savior. No, that's what Donald Trump says. He says, I'm going to fight for the 99%. It's us against 1% of the nation, and somehow we find ourselves fighting against each other. David, you're a Republican. I'm a Democrat. And you and I are a lot more alike than either of us are alike Donald Trump. If he's telling the truth and he's worth $10 billion, how does he reflect our values in any way, shape, or form? I never considered doing a land deal with the Russians. How about you?
I would love to do a land deal with the Russians. Hell, I'll even give Putin a cherry on top of the penthouse if I can put a couple $100 million in my pocket.
I'd like to do any land deal whatsoever at all.
Right.
We're talking about dirt here. Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. You can always join us on the phones talking about Bill Barr. Is he the PR man for Trump now? Has he joined the campaign yet? The Attorney General?
He's a toady.
Well, he's something. Come back with us. We'll tell you all about it. We are the Devil's Advocates, your own little afternoon cult of personality.
Nobody has better toys than I do.
Time to be an adult. You're president.
I think I would have been a good general, but who knows?
Grow up, Donald.
I alone can fix it.
Shut the f*** up, Donnie.
Exclamation point.
Electric bikes are exciting. E-bikes improve your health. E-bikes give you fun things to do this summer besides going out to eat.
Lynn, I have gotten chubby.
Lose weight, lower blood pressure.
But is it going to cost me $2,000?
No, at Crazy Lenny's E-Bikes, we have bikes for just $690. Get outside this summer. Ride the trails. Get an e-bike. Go up hills without pedaling. E-bikes only $690 at Crazy Lenny's E-Bikes, 6017 Odana Road.
You don't have to buy one. Just try one.
No, you don't have to buy one. Just try one.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer.
That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Dominic Bernie Sanders coming back to my hometown, Madison, Wisconsin. We will broadcast it live thanks to our friends at Teamsters Local 200.
Crudy, if there's a political party in Wisconsin, you know the Devil's Advocates have to be there. Join us for a rally with Bernie in Madison this Friday, April 12th. Broadcast begins at 3. Event starts at 5 at James Madison Park.
Special WRRT 1510 a.m., WTTN 1580 a.m. broadcast brought to you with limited commercial interruptions. Thank you, Teamsters Local 200.
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
Make up your mind. Decide to walk with me.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter at Devil Radio. The political party line, talk or text 844-967-2789.
Dominic, this long-distance dedication going out to Donald Trump's Attorney General William Barr, or as he's described by Jennifer Rubin today, William Barr, Trump toady.
Rubin refers to a previous Post report. Attorney General William Barr said Wednesday he thought spying on a political campaign occurred in the course of intelligence agencies' investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 election, a startling assertion by the nation's top law enforcement official.
Almost seems like a conspiracy theory hatched up by Hannity and the boys and girls over on Fox News, Dom.
Later in the hearing, Barr offered a more temperate description of his concerns, saying that he wanted to understand if there was unauthorized surveillance. I think we have some sound on this. Let's do, Brian, if you were ready, please start with cut 101, testifying today to the Senate.
I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that.
102?
I think there was spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me...
But the question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I'd need to explore that.
Spying, it's such a word full of nuance and emotion, and he's using it. It's purposeful, Dom. You know, surveillance, sure. Was the Trump campaign under surveillance? Were they under investigation? Apparently, yes. But when you talk about spying, you're talking about something untoward, aren't you? I mean, Russians spy on us. You know, back before they were on the Republican team, the Russians, they would spy on us, right?
And we surveil. Let's do one more, Bar 103.
I think there was spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well,
all right, and then we'll continue on again from Jennifer Rubin. He also goes on to say, I believe there is basis for my concern, but I'm not going to discuss my basis for my concern. I am not saying that improper surveillance occurred. I'm saying that I'm concerned about it, and I'm looking into it. That is all. And Rubin writes, this is the language of a PR spinner, not the Attorney General of the United States. As my colleague Aaron Blake points out, spying is a loaded phrase and a political accusation. Moreover, the Justice Department itself has refuted this notion, making clear that the Russian probe began before the government surveillance of Carter Page. The House Judiciary Committee Gerald Nadler tweeted out, quote, these comments directly contradict what DOJ previously told us. I've asked DOJ to brief us immediately. In the meantime, the AG still owes us the full Mueller report. Hashtag release the report. Now, Rubin writes, now, if you didn't already think Barr was failing to fulfill his oath to enforce the laws as the people's lawyer, not Trump's lawyer, this latest episode might do it. Remember that Barr already submitted his own exoneration of Trump on obstruction of justice, something the Justice Department's guidelines specifically specify should be a matter for Congress and not for the department. Barr also refused to use summaries that Mueller's team prepared in favor of his own misleading summary, which he later claimed was not a summary. Barr has failed to turn over the report or Mueller summaries to Congress in a timely manner and has refused to make an unredacted version of the report available to Congress. In all, it's a shabby record of politicizing the Justice Department in a way that his predecessors avoided. What's Congress to do? First, see what the redactions look like. Second, Second, go to court if need be to obtain a subpoena. Third, bring Mueller to testify, ask him details about the report, but also about Barr's letter and conduct. If, and it's a big if, Barr has misrepresented the report, prevented Congress from fulfilling its constitutional obligations, and or consulted with the White House to determine what to redact, it would be a serious breach of his obligations to enforce the law. He would actually be hindering its enforcement. At that point, lawmakers should demand Barr resign. Unless by some miracle he follows that advice, the House, if the above conditions are met, should move to impeachment hearings. The Justice Department, under his leadership at that point, will have lost its credibility, and the precedent would have been set for future attorneys general to obstruct the investigation of a special counsel. Constitutional lawyer Lawrence Tribe tells me, quote, Attorney General Barr is surely among the civil officers of the United States subject to removal pursuant to impeachment clause, Article 2, Section 4, and I don't doubt, based on his March 24th letter, his subsequent shifty pronouncement, and his disgraceful testimony yesterday and today, that whatever highly redacted document he releases as Mueller's report next week, Barr has been gravely abusing the powers of his office, possibly to the degree of committing high crimes and misdemeanors, Crudy.
However, Tribe and Joshua Matz argue in their book, To End the Presidency, that impeachment is a political decision. Tribe says the House has discretion whether to impeach someone who it believes committed an impeachable offense and, in fact, has a constitutional responsibility to consider the consequences of doing so. He continues, exercising that discretion, I don't think the House should undertake to impeach the current Attorney General, although I wouldn't blame anyone in Congress who felt a strong temptation to do so based on how he has conducted himself in office thus far. Only one cabinet member has ever been impeached, William Belknap, President Ulysses S. Grant's Secretary of War. He was acquitted. Nevertheless, if there are situations in which Trump compels cabinet members to lie, manipulate Congress, and thwart the law, it should be considered seriously on a case-by-case basis. Her conclusion, let's hope that Barr promptly turns over the report with the scant number of redactions. If not, the House needs to do everything possible to defend the rule of law and the public's right to know whether the president was negligent with national security and or tried to willfully thwart a valid investigation. Yeah, it's the latter. Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. Hour 2, it starts right now.
Do you want to be a winner? All the winners I know like the Devil's Advocates Facebook page.
In our world, you were either a bully, a toady, or one of the nameless rabble of victims.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners. The Devil's Advocates.
James Santel, he's a former U.S. attorney. He's our guest live on Brady.
Once again, a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen, to talk about the latest news breaking as we speak.
The FBI raided Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney, but once they got there, then they went back and got a more thorough warrant and said, we'll take everything.
My first reaction is you need to teach criminal constitutional law. You've got it just right in terms of the process.
They are kind of a big deal.
This is a really big deal.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at Real Resistance.
Big deal spying, more border military. I'm Jan Johnson. Attorney General William Barr says he's assembled a team to look into the evidence gathering that became the special counsel's Russia investigation.
I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal.
That drew a backlash from Democrats like Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who say there's no reason to suspect inappropriate FBI or intel surveillance.
Obviously, we want to make sure that law enforcement abides by the law and by the rules. But before you throw out public accusations, you would think you would at least provide some basis to the committee and some evidence, which he did not.
President Trump claims dirty cops were behind the Russia probe. The president today's in Texas for GOP fundraising and signing an executive order on energy and infrastructure. But our Clayton Neville tells us immigration policy has not been far from mind.
After hearing from Texas landowners at an event in San Antonio, the president said he would have to mobilize more of the military at the southern border. He said one man told him about the number of bodies he's found on his ranch.
I said, well, how many? And one of the folks said, well, we had 7 in the last fairly short period of time. 7. I said 7. That's one person.
The president said if migrants are dying in Texas, they're dying in other places along the border. I'm Clayton Neville.
An international team of scientists has produced the first ever photo of a black hole. And Harvard's Shepard Doleman says this is big.
We now have an entirely new way of studying general relativity and black holes that we never had before. And as with all great discoveries, this is just the beginning.
Turns out that science fact looks a lot like Hollywood's imagination. The picture shows a gaping black spot surrounded by a halo of light, roughly 54 million light years from Earth. On Wall Street, the Dow ended the day up 6 points. I'm Jan Johnson.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
To 411-411.
The spring weather outside is frightful for tens of millions. Omar Jimenez has an update.
The plains could get more than 2 feet of snow by Friday morning, and South Dakota may see up to 30 inches. Before the snow started falling, heavy fog blanketed the Denver metro. The low visibility just one sign of the rapid change in weather. The storm is packing a punch, too, with 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in some areas, making traveling dangerous, major airports packed with passengers as airlines cancel hundreds of flights, and since snow isn't the best baseball weather either, the Colorado Rockies postponed their game.
Yahoo is pitching a possible record $117 million to a judge to end the legal battle over the theft of sensitive information from nearly 200 million users. The proposal includes 2 years of free credit monitoring. The settlement, though, just a piece of a larger financial pie to settle a hack that in all affected $3 billion.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. PolitiFact Wisconsin looked at the claim by Republican lawmaker Jim Steineke that Governor Evers refuses to meet with Republicans and found just the opposite is true. Evers' staff reached out to Republicans to set up a meeting but did not receive a response. Wisconsin's Department of Natural Resources is planning to make a concerted effort this summer to find highly toxic perfluorinated chemicals in the state's lakes and rivers. Those chemicals are used in nonstick cookware, stain-resistant carpeting, and fire extinguishers. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison: Wednesday, rain-snow mix today, highs in the upper 30s. Tonight, rainy and windy, lows in the low 30s. Thursday, rainy and windy, highs in the upper 40s. And Friday, partly sunny, highs again in the upper 40s. For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, the headlines continue to evolve and drop as we've been on the air. Breaking news, according to the Chiron, Nancy Pelosi claims that William Barr, the Attorney General, is going off the rails. I mean, maybe she's a big Ozzy fan, Dom, but she is accusing the Attorney General of being the Attorney General of Donald Trump.
Yeah, isn't that what he's supposed to do?
Real quick, Dom, and we are going to get to the very patient caller. Mark, be patient just a minute longer. 844-967-2789. The good news is you don't have to be as patient as Mark. We'll get to you sooner. But I did want to get some polling out there. Some Hill.com Harris X polling. The vast majority of Americans say their opinions of the special counsel Robert Mueller's findings are unlikely to change after more information from his investigation is released. In the Harris Hill survey of registered voters, an overwhelming 72% said that more information from Mueller's probe into Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and Russian interference in the election would be unlikely to make them rethink their beliefs. Only 28%, Dom, said their opinions could shift. 28% open-minded about the Mueller report. But here's what I would point out. The newest Marquette University Law School poll, and again, we got a fine guest joining us in the happy hour, Charles Franklin, the director of Same Said. Well, he had some new polling today, and he polled on a number of variants on the Mueller question. And I would say there has certainly been an impact from October and even January, but here's a few points. The GOP, the Republican Party, those that call themselves Republicans in this newest survey of Wisconsin voters, back in October of 2018, Dom, just 12% of Republicans had a great deal of confidence in the Mueller report. You know what it's at now? 43%. 43% of Republicans, suddenly, they love the Mueller report, although they haven't seen the Mueller report, right?
I know. I can't believe that people would be so apt to just jump in all of a sudden. Yes, it's great. If it comes out, and it's certainly, and I imagine it will be more derogatory than the Attorney General has led us to believe, what are they going to say then? Oh, now it's not okay. It'll go back down at the next poll?
Dominic, 43% of Republicans now have a great deal of confidence in the Mueller report. Also, your favorite topic, impeachment. Sentiment for impeachment in the state of Wisconsin, it's down. 33, it's down to 29%, Dom. That is a small number. You're not going to get your impeachment wish, not with that sort of popularity. And one final thought, Russian interference. Because Bill Barr is implying, right, if you believe this conspiracy theory of the right, spied on poor Trump.
Now you're talking about the counterintelligence investigations, the FBI. According to the Attorney General today, believes that that organization specifically, quote unquote, spied on the Trump campaign.
They spied on the Trump campaign. Yes, that is what we are to believe. And those like Barr, and let's not forget, Barr, basically previewed what he might, say today with a 19-page statement saying there is no justification for a Mueller investigation. But that, of course, completely ignores what we know to be true, that the Russians did interfere in the elections, right? Something happened. Whether or not Donald Trump was a willing partner in that act, we've got conspiracy, we've got charges, there are all sorts of charges regarding Russian interference in the election. So whether or not a investigation at the time was warranted should be a no freaking brainer, right? Now, whether or not Donald Trump was involved, ultimately, that's why you investigate. Perhaps he was exonerated by the Mueller report. We don't know. We haven't read it yet.
No.
Well, exonerated from the perspective of provable conspiracy or collusion with the Russians.
Perhaps that they couldn't have it, they didn't have the evidence to the 99th degree that Donald Trump could be convicted in the court of law.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, I think, is the standard they were trying to achieve.
But perhaps the very obstruction that they were providing gave cover and therefore shielded him. The obstruction worked. And I would just also say, the Harris Hill poll, 72% say that the more information into Mueller's probe will be unlikely for them to rethink their beliefs. So people are already, obviously in. No matter really what Mueller says to me at this point, whether it's obstruction or non-obstruction, I'm never voting for that guy again. Right? Again, I didn't vote for him, but I'm never voting for Donald Trump. I'm never going to support him. And certainly there's going to be those folks that do support him. And no matter what that thing says, they're not going to. But 28% say that their opinions could shift. And I think while it seems to be a small number, I think it can still be an influential number.
Well, Dominic, in the state of Wisconsin, in the Marquette University Law School poll that dropped today, 60% of Wisconsinites believe the Russians interfered. It should be 99.9%, right? Why would anyone doubt other than the obfuscation that Donald Trump's been doing? Because there's no doubt that there was interference by the Russians. The only question is whether or not Don Jr. and Manafort and Jared Kushner and Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi and Michael Flynn, whether or not they were part of it. And, of course, the big question, whether or not Donald Trump knew, what did the president know and when did he know it? 844-967-2789. Let's get to Mark. You've been quite patient. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, I think the word you're looking for in Trump's case is probably the preponderance of the evidence now indicates that he is likely guilty of, or his campaign is guilty of, dealing with the Russians. As far as
but what if he was an unwitting stooge, and as opposed to a? Yeah. I mean, is it possible?
I'm a patsy.
Is it possible he was just such a moron he didn't know how to properly conspire?
No.
Oh, I agree with Dom on this one. And Trump would never admit that he's too stupid to not be guilty of something.
He's a control freak, Mark. I mean, this guy wouldn't let something like that happen without his signature. He loves his signature. He loves being involved. He'll tell you, the decisions are his. He runs DHS now, don't you know, Mark?
Yep. And as far as for the definition for William Barr being a toady, Ruben hit it. She hit the nail on the head on that one, because from with thesaurus.com, toady, servile parasite, apparently shortened from toad eater, fawning flatterer, originally referring to the assistant of a charlatan who ate a toad, which at the time were believed to be poisonous, to enable his master to display his skill at expelling the poison. And I think that William Barr in the future, he's going to be his name will be the synonym for replace toady in the dictionaries, because he certainly is the assistant of a charlatan, because that what is Trump beside a grifter and a charlatan? I mean,
frog legs for you all.
You're not supposed to eat them, Mark. You're supposed to lick those little tropical ones. They're supposed to give quite a buzz, I understand. Thanks for the call, man. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, you've been licking toads again? Are we going to have to send you back to toady rehab?
Oh, if I go back to toady rehab, I'm going to run into Bill Barr. This is a disgrace. It's a joke. And all this is just what? It's all delayed. It's all going to come out. It's going to come out. You can't hide this stuff. It's going to come out.
This whole investigating the investigators, watching the detectives, if you will, remind you at all of the John Doe 2 in the state of Wisconsin?
Totally.
I mean, that was the game plan. That was the blueprint. First, you delay, and while the investigation's going on, you get out there, you claim your case, and then you, what? You attack the investigators, and you investigate the investigators. That was Brad Schimmel's plan, right? Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. Your plan should be listening to us 3 hours each weekday because we're the best damn radio show ever. And it's wet and snowy outside. It's bad on the roads. Be careful out there. Just go slow and we'll get you home safe. But you can always join us as well. But do it from a safe location. 844-967-2789. More Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
Watching the detectives.
The collusion delusion.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle.
Doctor. They did interfere in our elections. It's really clear. There should be no doubt about that.
Doctor. And doctor.
If the president puts Russian salad dressing on his salad tonight, somehow that's a Russian connection.
We're not doctors.
But there's been no collusion, no obstruction, and virtually everybody agrees to that.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org. Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern. Eric Holder, he's the former U.S. Attorney General and current chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
The notion that Scott Walker is saying that we are doing something to push partisan gerrymandering, that is the pot calling the kettle total black. I mean, that's absurd. He is one of the architects of among the most gerrymandered states in the union. All we're pushing for is a fair process come 2021.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio. Always join us on the phones or text us out at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, there you go again. Any excuse to play Little Hall & Oates. You know, they're coming to Breeze Stevens Field in Madison, August 24th, 25th, something like that. You coming down for the big concert? How could you miss it?
I saw Hall & Oates at Summerfest not so long ago.
Of course you did.
Of course.
Which one are you? More of a Hall guy or an Oates guy?
I don't know which one is which. I'd say more of the dark-haired one.
The dark-haired, mustachioed one, the short guy.
That's Oates.
That's Oates. I'm an Oates guy.
I'm more of the tall, handsome Hall guy. Dominic, we've got more on William Barr, accusing the Department of Justice of spying on Donald Trump. What a ridiculous accusation. What a conspiracy theorist. And he said this, in front of a Senate subcommittee hearing earlier today. Paul Waldman at the Washington Post. William Barr is doing exactly what Trump hired him to do.
Yes, he is.
One of the most revealing things President Trump ever said was his complaint last year, I don't have an attorney general. This wasn't because Jeff Sessions was failing to work every day, but rather because he had recused himself from the Russia investigation. Had Trump known that Sessions would not oversee that investigation and thus protect him from it, the president said, I would have quickly picked someone else. Because after all, what higher duty could the Attorney General of the United States have than to do the president's personal bidding, ?
Give me a break.
Well, now Trump has his Attorney General, William P. Barr. As we learned in his Tuesday congressional testimony, Barr will do everything in his power to make sure as little as possible of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on the Russia scandal reaches the public's eyes. And now Barr will be using the power of his office to accommodate the president, Fox News, bloviators, and every right-wing internet troll, their fevered fantasies of a deep state anti-Trump conspiracy. Now Waldman quotes a different article, Dom. Attorney General William Barr has assembled a team to review controversial counterintelligence decisions made by Justice Department and FBI officials, including actions taken during the probe of the Trump campaign. The spying of the Trump campaign in the summer of 2016, according to a person familiar with the matter. This indicates that Barr is looking into allegations that Republican lawmakers have been pursuing for more than a year, that the investigation into President Donald Trump and possible collusion with Russia was tainted at the start by anti-Trump bias in the FBI and the Justice Department. Now back to Waldman's writing. In his testimony Wednesday, Barr even said, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. This echoes one of the more preposterous descriptions Trump and his advocates have used for the counterintelligence investigation. So let's make sure we understand what's controversial about that investigation. As we now know, in 2016, Russia mounted a comprehensive effort to help get Trump elected president of the United States. That effort included social media propagandizing, outreach to Trump campaign officials, and the hacking of Democratic emails. The FBI began its counterintelligence investigation in the early summer of 2016 when it was alerted that a Trump campaign advisor had bragged that Russia had in its possession stolen Clinton emails that could be used to embarrass her. That investigation confronted two broad questions. That's Papadopoulos, right?
Right.
The guy that did a little bit of prison time right here in Wisconsin, Dom.
Yeah.
That investigation confronted two broad questions. What was the nature of the Russian meddling in the U.S. election, and was the Trump campaign involved? ? We can argue about how to interpret everything the investigation eventually uncovered, but the Republicans' position, and we have to be clear about this because it's utterly bonkers, has in effect been there should never have been any FBI investigation at all into the Russian attack on the U.S. election. That is the Republican position, Dom.
Crudy, a more sane group of people would say that while, of course, Russia's attack on our electoral system was important to investigate, that investigation hasn't shown criminality by the president and his associates. Well, apart from the crimes Mueller found by members of Trump's inner circle. So in that end, they were vindicated, sort of. We could argue about that conclusion too, but that's not the position Republicans are taking. They're saying the entire investigation was illegitimate from the get-go. A less ludicrous position might be that though the investigation was legitimate, the particular way it was carried out was problematic. Republicans make arguments on this score as well, but they're not much more tethered to reality. Their theory is that there was a vast and ruthless conspiracy within the Justice Department and, specifically the FBI, just for the record, probably the most politically conservative agency in the entire federal government, to destroy Trump. The problem is that there is no genuine evidence that any actions anyone took in the course of the investigation displayed improper anti-Trump bias. Peter Strzok? Nope. Strzok, who had a key role in the counterintelligence investigation of Russia meddling, pardon me, exchanged text messages in which he disparaged Trump in what must surely have been the first case in history in which an investigator held one of his targets in low esteem. Those texts.
You think that's sarcasm, Don?
I think a little bit. If there was a sarcasm font, I think that would have been there. Those texts were publicly released by the Justice Department, which is why we know they exist. What we don't have, for instance, are text messages exchanged by the FBI agents in the New York office who were reportedly consumed with their hatred of Hillary Clinton because they were not released. But having established that someone working on the Russia investigation disliked Trump, Republicans spun out a story of vast conspiracy to destroy the future president running through the government. The only trouble was that they could never find any evidence that such a conspiracy existed. Most glaring of all, the supposed anti-Trump conspiracy declined to take any action, Crudy, that would have prevented Trump from becoming president. As Strzok himself said in congressional testimony, he possessed information that had the potential to derail and quite possibly defeat Mr. Trump. But the thought of exposing that information never crossed my mind. Republicans have never explained why their imagined anti-Trump conspiracy failed to do the one thing that would have accomplished its supposed goal. But now, the Attorney General has given the president and his superfans on Fox News and in Congress what they wanted: an official probe into the Russia investigation to see if there was malfeasance that hasn't yet been discovered. Here's a quote from Republican Jim Jordan. That's something that has been really important to us. That is what we've been calling for. Once again, that was Jim Jordan. And wrapping up the piece here from Paul Waldman in the Washington Post, I suppose it's possible that Barr's team will find that the conspiracy is real and we'll all be astonished. But it's more likely that they'll take what we already know and package it into a tale of supposition, conjecture, and dark insinuations. Their conclusions will be trumpeted for days on Fox. Shocking revelations about the deep state conspiracy, Hannity will shout. The president will tweet that every allegation he has ever made about the nefarious FBI has been proven true. Congressional Republicans will demand that the Justice Department be purged of anyone unwilling to declare their eternal loyalty to Trump. And the president will nod in satisfaction and say, now I have an attorney general.
Folks, we are the devil's advocates. Peter Strzok, the deep state guy, the FBI guy, had Lisa Page, had an affair,
his
was
mistress
removed from the investigation. But I would point out, Peter Strzok could have killed Trump's presidency before it happened, just like John Chisholm could have charged Scott Walker in the John Doe 2, and he never did. That's my parallel. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Your phone calls, 844-967-2789.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
Russia, 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 Russia.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
What do basketball, choir, drama club, and marching band all have in common? They're all high school activities that offer learning opportunities not necessarily found in the classroom. They take up just a fraction of a typical Wisconsin high school's budget, and they go a long way to giving young people the tools they need to thrive. High school activities, they're more than extracurricular. They're extra important, too. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the...
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com. Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
What do basketball, choir, drama club, and marching band all have in common? They're all high school activities that offer learning opportunities not necessarily found in the classroom. They take up just a fraction of a typical Wisconsin high school's budget, and they go a long way to giving young people the tools they need to thrive. High school activities, they're more than extracurricular. They're extra important, too. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Dr. Michael Hicks, professor of economics, director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. This is troubling math all the way around. According to your mathematics, Michael, when do you think the great state of Wisconsin will get paid back on its investment?
Right. I mean, the answer is the answer is never.
For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. Now that a federal appeals court judge ruled with the Evers administration yesterday, the governor and the attorney general have pulled Wisconsin from all lawsuits against the Affordable Care Act. The Wisconsin State Joint Finance Committee is holding a public hearing right now in Oak Creek. This is part of a series of hearings to be held around the state, but this is the only one in the Milwaukee metro area during the month of April. This is the public's chance to weigh in on the proposed budget of Governor Evers. The hearing will be at the Oak Creek Community Center, 8580 South Howell Avenue in Oak Creek. It goes until 5 p.m. this afternoon. In another court victory for the Evers administration, an appeals court yesterday declined to reinstate 15 appointments made by former Governor Scott Walker that were approved by Republicans during the lame duck session in the days following the November election. For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in. Tom and Krutz on the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Sorry, no Batman coming around, no Matt Rothschild.
I was going to say, man, I'm waiting for Matt to show up.
Although this is his theme song, we do have a fine guest coming along in about 10 minutes, Tom. Dan Kaufman, author of The Fall of Wisconsin, and a contributor at The New Yorker and The New York Times. He joins us. He has a big event in Milwaukee at UWM tonight, 6 to 7:30. You know, listen to the Devil's Advocates, then go see Dan Kaufman. And, of course, Charles Franklin joins us, Marquette University Law School director in the Happy Hour. Dom, but I play the Batman theme, and I want to get this headline out there, and then we'll grab some phone calls at 844-967-2789. Warner Brother takes legal action against Trump over Batman music. First, it was Game of Thrones. Now it's Batman. And in both cases, it seemed the joke ended up being on Donald Trump. On Tuesday night, Warner Brothers launched legal action against the president after he retweeted a video that featured music from the Dark Knight Rises Batman movie. Trump posted a fan-made 2-minute video for his 2020 re-election campaign that featured Hans Zimmer's Why Do We Fall from the 2012 film. It also featured the font used in the film's title cards and the words, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they call you a racist. Donald J. Trump, your vote proved them all wrong. Trump, the great victory 2020.
And here we go.
Now, when we called him a racist, is that some sort of sign of victory for him? Isn't it an accurate description of the man? I read on briefly. That all happened as pictures of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton flashed up a Mahatma Gandhi misquote that the Trump campaign itself has previously employed and then pulled up for. Warner Brothers, which owns the Batman franchise, noticed the post, which was garnering a lot of online traffic. The tweet was still available for several hours before Warner Brothers' decision to take legal action. But according to a report in Variety magazine, the video had been replaced by a message stating the video has been removed in response to a report from the copyright holder. Trump had captioned it, "Make America Great Again." Little MAGA Dom. Anyways, that's enough. Trump being sued by the Batman franchise seems quite appropriate. He is something of a joker in his own regard.
Isn't he, though? Did you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, Crudy? 844-967-2789.
As fate would have it, yes, I have.
Yeah? I don't remember. Matt from Johnson's Creek, you are up. Thanks for calling today. Matt, what do you got?
Hey, Matt.
Hey guys. The whole the deep state plan to scuttle the election or whatever, it reminds me of, first of all, you guys are familiar with Occam's razor, the most likely answer, and using logic. It reminds me of like the coyote springing the trap after the roadrunner's already gone through. Like, that was your plan? You're going to wait for him to get in there and then spring the trap? Like, that's the worst possible and least logical argument I've ever heard in my life. And then what they do is they pivot to, well, it wasn't that, I guess. It was trying to, destroy his good name or whatnot, when it hadn't been but 2 years since the Republicans actually bragged about using the Benghazi hearings to literally weaken Clinton in her bid to, make a run of the presidency. Like, that was a plank in their whole shtick.
Hey, man,
Coyote, super genius.
Hey, man, you remember when Wisconsin's own Senator Ron Johnson was talking about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's tweets and the secret societies, and it was only later that he realized perhaps there was a little humor or sarcasm involved, and I think he's backed off that position, but I'm not so sure now.
Yeah, I don't know if he ever officially backed off. I do remember, this is the same guy who didn't know what the drinking age was. So what are you going to put in his opinion?
I think that was Speaker Paul Ryan, but it may
No.
Ron
Rojo was on our show, didn't know
well.
the drinking age. We made him famouser.
Hey, thanks for the call, Matt. But I think Waldman, I think that was a Waldman piece we were referencing. I think the Washington Post points out, very basic facts, as Matt brings up. I mean, the FBI is one of the most conservative federal agencies there is.
Trumpland, they called it.
And in the reporting, as mentioned briefly in the piece, there's a lot of anti-Hillary folks there. So for the law and order party, quote unquote, the Republicans love to talk about law and order, to throw one of the probably the most conservative federal agency under the bus, which of course investigates for law and order, to defend Donald Trump. It makes no sense. Their arguments are weak, and certainly if there was something to be had, if there was an insurance policy, why didn't Strzok use it?
Why didn't John Chisholm charge Scott Walker in the John Doe 2? I mean, if that was truly either of these men's intent to destroy the political career of their, opponent, their target, be it Donald Trump and Peter Strzok, be it Scott Walker and John Chisholm, why didn't they just drop the bomb?
Right.
You don't even have to convict. All you had to do was recommend the polls, right? Just drop it, leak it, put it out there in the papers, a week before Election Day? That would have had all the necessary impact, I suspect.
Give the electorate enough doubt to turn away a few people. Maybe they'll vote for someone else. Maybe they won't even show up. That's all you need to do, right? If you were so inclined, if that was the mission of the FBI. Now, the FBI, come on.
They were the same ones that Comey was out there talking about Hillary Clinton reopening the investigation like 10 days before the election. Maybe the Republicans forgot all about Comey.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course they do, because that doesn't go along with what their current argument is, I guess, that it's all the FBI's fault. It's a conspiracy within the FBI. And if you have, I mean, listen, if you're doing a counterintelligence investigation and some of those folks happen to be on the campaign, they're probably going to be heard. I mean, I think it was Matt, was it Flynn, who was talking to one of the Sergis when he was on vacation. My understanding, they picked that up because, of course, they listened to all the Sergi's phone calls. I mean, yes, it would make sense that if there's a counterintelligence investigation, that they would be perhaps looking at some of those folks within Trump's campaign who were talking to the Russians.
But Dominic,
Lock her up.
Their entire logic, and it wasn't Matt Flynn, it was Mike Flynn. Don't want to confuse
Flynn.
our
Thank you.
pal, the former Wisconsin Dem gubernatorial candidate and a friend of ours, Matt Flynn. But Dom, you understand this logic all stems from the fact that the Hillary campaign funded the tail end of the Fusion GPS, the Trump thing, the Christopher Steele dossier, the PP tape thing, right?
Well, wait, but I don't want to, not the whole thing. Again, the FBI started the 2016 counterintelligence investigation because of drunk Papadopoulos, unless you don't believe what the FBI is telling you now.
Or the timing, or the FISA warrants, which of course aren't in the public purview, but which do establish the timeline of the counterintelligence investigation. I think you get the point, Dom. You and I get the point. And I don't think more information in the Mueller report would change your mind much, right? You already think he's a corrupt bastard worthy of impeachment.
Correct.
So getting this information out, I mean, I think the telling stat, again, in the Marquette University Law School poll that dropped today in October of 2018, Wisconsin Republicans, about 12% reported having a great deal of confidence in the Mueller report. Now we're up to 43%. We haven't seen it. We've seen the new Trump toadies version of it in a 4-page summary, which wasn't a summary, William Barr. And today he's going to call it spying. And the only way any of this is plausible is if you say that the FISA warrants for Carter Page, which were inspired by the Trump dossier, which was a little illegitimate because not verified at the time. But I'd point out after the fact, damn near every part of it, short of the PP tape to date, has been verified. The Steele dossier, it's held up quite well to scrutiny. And Carter Page, 4 FISA judges signed off on 4 separate warrants. Even if this investigation was inspired by Carter Page, maybe it's because he was suspected of being a Russian agent. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you got a problem with that? What, the FBI is not supposed to investigate that? If Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama were palling around with foreign agents, would that be a problem? You think they'd have an issue then?
I hear Obama might have tapped Trump Tower. 2 Ps. Come back with us. We got a fine guest joining us live via phone. He is Dan Kaufman, a contributor at The New Yorker, The New York Times, and he's giving a presentation tonight at UW Milwaukee, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Golden by Ear Library. Come back, more Devils, and Dan Kaufman.
In their last moments, people show you who they really are.
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
You are my number one guy.
Stop touching me all the time.
As humans, we ask ourselves all kinds of questions. But what if we were forced to ask ourselves a question every day that affected the outcome of the most basic things? The most important things in our lives. The question is, what is your sexual orientation or gender identity? And the answer is the difference between keeping your job or getting fired. The answer is the difference between staying in your home or getting evicted. The answer is the difference between receiving medical treatment or not. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against people based on their answer to this question. LGBT Americans have the right to say I do, but they don't have the same basic rights as everyone else. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you miss any of this fine program or just want to go back and relive the highlights, please go to domandcroot.com. You can listen to and download interviews and podcasts.
Dominic, that was a timely promo. Thank you, Fancy Brian. I got the figure your fingerprints are all over that one. It was Ron Johnson that does not know the drinking age. Although Paul Ryan, he has many blind spots, I suspect. Dominic, we've got a fine guest joining us live via phone. His name, Dan Kaufman. He is the author of The Fall of Wisconsin, and I'm going to read the subtitle, The Legacy of Divide and Conquer Politics and the Aftermath of the 2018 Elections. Dan, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's actually the lecture title. It's a bit long, but I wanted to talk about the midterms and what's happened since the book's publication. So that will be part of the talk tonight if any of your listeners want to come out.
Yeah, we're encouraging them to join you at UW Milwaukee tonight. That event starts at 6 p.m., the Golda Meir Library, 4th floor conference center, and that's over on East Hartford Avenue. Google it. It's worth a Google. Dan, we hope you get lots of people in the room despite the bad weather, because lots of people...
I know. It's funny. I mean, it's April, but yeah. No, it's welcome back to Wisconsin. It's always nice to be welcomed by a white April. So, yeah.
Dan, let me ask you, the title of your book begs the question, Divide and Conquer. Scott Walker famously said that to Diane Hendricks, got caught on a video. You know, first he's going to divide us and then he's going to conquer us. And in many cases, Scott Walker was very successful with his plan.
Absolutely.
Dan, with the midterms and the loss of Scott Walker, is divide and conquer politics done here in the state of Wisconsin?
Well, you know, that's one of the things I'll talk about. Like, there was some sense that he had exhausted that mode. I think people started paying attention to the decaying public infrastructure, the roads, the schools. I mean, there were austerity budgets for 8 years, and it really took a toll, and it's cumulative. That said, you had the election, you know, more recently with the state Supreme Court race, which was signaled that I don't know if it's over at all. I mean, I think one of the things that people that's sort of threaded throughout the book is the kind of relentlessness of the Republican infrastructure, and losing an election is often seen as a momentary setback. And they've instituted a lot of ways to hold on to power through gerrymandering, to the lame duck bills, and so on and so forth, that really can't, you know, are not democratic. And so they have a quest for power that that is different than earlier generations, and they seem determined to hold on to it. And you saw that in that Supreme Court election when a lot of people had written off. Is it pronounced Hagedorn, by the way? I'm not even certain.
We've been calling him Hagedorn.
Hagedorn. I didn't know.
Well, but Dan, I got to say, I'm not
great
sure
with the names, Dan.
I'm not sure that we want to be the ones.
Well, anyway, he, you know, he was written off by some, you know, traditional Republican donors, but then, you know, Americans for Prosperity and some of the Christian right came to his defense, and the Democrats ran, well, it's a nonpartisan race, but the sort of Democratic-leaning groups ran a very lackluster campaign. She didn't seem to run a very spirited campaign, kind of reminiscent of Russ Feingold's campaign in 2016. also, the sense that Ron Johnson was not going to win, and then in the last hours, and this is a tactic of the Republican right to, kind of flood the race with a kind of really unprecedented sums of dark money, not really creating an opportunity for anyone to respond. I mean, just really like tons of dark money. It happened even in a state Senate race years ago. Russ Decker, when he was defeated in 2010, they flooded that race with $300,000, which at that time was unheard of, and managed to defeat him, and he had seemed to be safe. So it's a tactic, and I think Wisconsin will remain this sort of contested, battleground. It's the most pivotal state in the country, I think, leading up to 2020.
Dan, when did we see the dividing and conquering of the electorate? Is this stemming from the Tea Party movement of 2010 or from the election of Scott Walker and some of his ilk here in Wisconsin, to your opinion, sir?
Well, I think Walker really revived it, but it's an age-old tactic in American politics, and it's usually divided by race. In this case, he pitted, the public sector employees against private sector ones. But it has been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, you could argue, and I talk a little bit about that in my speech tonight. Martin Luther King spoke about it, how poor whites and African Americans were being divided by Jim Crow when they might be allies. I mean, this has been a very effective tactic. Walker chose a different tact, but in many ways, he's very similar to President Trump, who had different victims and perpetrators. In his case, he went after Mexican immigrants, but they both had praise for a certain type of working class voter, and then would go on to betray that person, that type of voter. In Walker's case, he instituted right to work. And, Trump has, in his new tax bill, I mean, there's incentives for companies to move to Mexico. So there's really been a betrayal and yet a lot of success at dividing groups that, had they been unified, might be able to defeat these forces. So,
Dan, one of the divisions that I thought Scott Walker drew, and one of the contrasts, was urban versus rural voters. And Milwaukee was villainized, and Madison has been villainized, of course, because they're, power centers of the Democratic Party, but they also are the places where a vast number of ethnic minorities live. And whether or not he's painted it as a black and white issue, I just look at his policies, Dan, be it voter suppressive, rolling back souls to the polls. Scott Walker made every effort he could to make it harder for African Americans and minorities and people of color to get the work, to get the votes. I mean, Dan, he didn't have to call himself a racist. His policies speak for themselves.
Oh, sure. And he was on talk radio shows with people that really made, racist statements and stuff. And I think, he does have nicer manners than President Trump and whatnot. But when you look at it, it's very similar tactic. And I mean, going back to his tenure as county executive, I mean, he was really running against the city, and the city has the only real high concentration of African Americans in the state. And there was a lot of barely coded, messages in that. And that is a tactic that has been very effective for the Republicans, but it has deep roots. I mean, George Wallace came to Milwaukee in 1964 and got a lot of support. But there's I think the problem is that people are missing is this, what's happening now is also being done in times of real economic insecurity. So it can really spread much more. It can be stoked more easily. Not to say that some people don't have these feelings, but when you have a leader like Trump or Walker encouraging the worst in people, it can be catalyzed when people are really worried about, that these jobs with pensions and health insurance are vanishing still. The unemployment figures really mask a really deep-seated economic insecurity, in particular in the Midwest. And I think that context has allowed politicians like Trump and Walker to flourish in a way that they might not have before.
Dan, got to ask you, you've referenced the infrastructure of the right. You talked about right-wing talk radio. I'm going to hearken to an article I read back in 2014. I believe it was entitled The Unelectable Whiteness of Scott Walker, and it was written by a guy named Alec McGinnis at New Republic, and he talked about the right-wing talk radio infrastructure propping up Scott Walker in the state of Wisconsin. But, of course, it was also a preview to the failed presidential campaign of Scott Walker, because what McGinnis said is effectively Scott Walker's not going to play outside of Wisconsin. So for a minute, can you tell us what are you talking about when you talk about the infrastructure of the right? That's things like right-wing talk radio, the Bradley Foundation, et cetera. Right, Dan?
Well, exactly those things, and especially the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is very powerful. A lot of people in the Trump administration are actually, former members of it and very active. Scott Pruitt and people that had been in the administration and they were, Mike Pence was very big in ALEC, and they are a group that, as many of your listeners know, design model legislation in conjunction with corporate donors and right-wing think tanks. And state legislators are kind of the junior partner in this process. And a lot of ALEC legislation was kind of superimposed on Wisconsin during these past 8 years. And it's very difficult to undo it, because of the gerrymandering and everything. But yet there was no citizen drive for, say, a right to work law or Act 10 for that matter.
Right.
Walker was able to sell it because there was a lot of rural Wisconsinites are really struggling. The towns have been hollowed out over decades, corporate agriculture. There was 150,000 dairy farms in the late 40s, and now there's fewer than 9,000. So,
folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's Dan Kaufman. He's an author, and he is also going to be in Milwaukee tonight, giving a speech at the UW Milwaukee, 6 to 7:30, Golda Meir Library, 4th floor of the Conference Center on Hartford Avenue. We got him for about 2 more minutes. Dan, you talked about the relentlessness of the Republicans, and I thought that it was a great description. But not only the divide and conquer politics that they'd engage in, they also have an ability to round up their troops and get out their voters when it's necessary. Any lessons you think that the progressives or the Democrats could learn from the organizing of the Republicans?
Well, I don't know. It's a bit of a different thing because I think the Republican Party is more cohesive than the Democratic Party, which is seeing a kind of pretty profound split between a progressive wing and a more establishment, I guess, centrist, if you will, wing. So I think that process is playing out. And I think until it's more or less resolved in one way or another, it will be hard to find that level of cohesion. But you have seen the party move to more unified positions around health care and so on, probably because of Senator Bernie Sanders. 2016 was a watershed election, I think, on the Democratic side, too, even though the establishment candidate did win. So I don't know. I think there are lessons to be learned, but I think it would be hard to learn them until certain other things are kind of resolved internally. But, Tony Evers is an interesting case because although he was perceived, his temperament is very moderate and kind of, not flame-throwing, but he was really steeped in something that I think worked out to be successful for him.
Dan, so sorry to cut you short. Save all the good stuff for the lecture tonight over at UW Milwaukee. Dan Kaufman, author of The Fall of Wisconsin. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. The happy hour starts right now.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroot.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
Freedom.
We became a pretty good governing party.
Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of Five Nines. Have you got your head in the clouds on how to manage IT for your enterprise? We can make your dreams a reality. With our enterprise cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting, we'll manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Consider Five Nines your personal enterprise IT solution. Enjoy technology. For more information, visit 59s.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
The Devil's Advocates.
Doug from Cuddle.
Right around the time of the uprising, I found you. I started listening, and 2 years later, after I signed the recall and voted, we went out to sing along with the singers on my birthday. And they were so cool, and it's one of the greatest memories that I had. And ever since I started listening to the Devil's Advocates, I have been woke. I haven't missed one vote since. You guys have really done wonders for our community, and I'm just so happy you're on the air.
Making radio great again.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at Real Resistance Radio.
Explosive spy allegation, more border forces. I'm Barbara Cusack. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called on Attorney General William Barr to either produce evidence of spying on the Trump 2016 presidential campaign or totally retract his statement before a Senate panel. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi offered her thoughts at a Virginia retreat.
He is the Attorney General of the United States of America, not the Attorney General of Donald Trump.
Barr said he would look into whether U.S. agencies spied on the Trump campaign, but under sharp questioning by lawmakers, Barr admitted there was no evidence of wrongdoing. President Trump staged an impromptu news conference to relate the stories from the border that came to light during a GOP fundraiser in Texas. Correspondent Caitlin Collins fills us in.
As he was recounting those stories that he said he heard from the donors around him, the president said he wants to send more military to the southern border. Now, we're told a formal request has not been made with the Pentagon yet.
Government offices shuttered in South Dakota, flights canceled in Denver, and Nebraska looking at blizzard conditions spreading across the Rockies and the Plains. Meteorologist Nathan Jurgensen is with the National Weather Service in Nebraska.
We're expecting a large area of 12 inches plus snow, a few areas maybe even along the Nebraska-South Dakota border, and even points north from there may even be closer to 18 inches of snow.
A U.S. jury has found a former priest, 81-year-old Arthur Perot, guilty of sexually abusing a boy nearly 3 decades ago at a veterans cemetery and Air Force base in New Mexico. Perot vanished from New Mexico in 1992, but was returned to the U.S. in September from Morocco to face charges of aggravated sexual abuse and abusive sexual contact. At least one person was killed, more than a dozen others injured following a gas leak explosion in North Carolina. The Durham fire chief said the blast encompassed 5 buildings and catastrophically damaged one. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
844-91-BIBLE.
A 34-year-old pro sports gambler from Las Vegas has set the all-time records for money won on a single round of Jeopardy.
A new one-day record, $110,914.
James Holzhauer won $110,914 on Tuesday night's episode, breaking the record for a single show previously held by Roger Craig when he won $77,000 in an episode that aired in 2010. Holzhauer's record-breaking appearance was the 4th straight victory for him. He's earned a total of $244,000 so far. The record-breaking episode was actually taped back on February 11th. I'm John Stolness.
Forbes estimates the New York Yankees are baseball's most valuable franchise at $4.6 billion, up 15% from its figure last year. The LA Dodgers came in second at $3.3 billion, followed by the World Series champion Boston Red Sox at $3.2 billion. I'm Barbara Cusack.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Wisconsin. This is sportsmanship. School sports, It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. PolitiFact Wisconsin looked at the claim by Republican lawmaker Jim Steineke that Governor Evers refuses to meet with Republicans and found just the opposite is true. Evers' staff reached out to Republicans to set up a meeting but did not receive a response. Wisconsin's Department of Natural Resources is planning to make a concerted effort this summer to find highly toxic perfluorinated chemicals in the state's lakes and rivers. Those chemicals are used in nonstick cookware, stain-resistant carpeting, and fire extinguishers. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison: Wednesday, rain-snow mix today, highs in the upper 30s. Tonight, rainy and windy, lows in the low 30s. Thursday, rainy and windy, highs in the upper 40s. And Friday, partly sunny, highs again in the upper 40s. For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the Hump Day happy hour, and it's always happy when there's new Marquette University Law School polling, and when our good friend Charles Franklin, director of Same Said Poll, joins us on the phone. Charles, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Thank you, Charles.
Charles, I got to tell you, first time I've ever been a little disappointed in the timing of polling. Why couldn't you drop this like 10, 14 days ago, sir?
Well, nothing except when it's ready. Yeah, it's an interesting time these days.
Charles, let's start from the top of the ticket. Donald Trump still underwater in the approved, disapprove, but how's he looking currently, sir?
Just a shade better than in January. He's at 46 approve, 52 disapprove. That's up 2 points on the approval from January. But remember, the January poll was towards the end of the government shutdown. So it's not much movement in any sense, and it's certainly not a lot given the end of the shutdown and the conclusion of the Mueller report.
Charles, last time you did polling in January, Tony Evers was a newly inaugurated governor, hadn't really had a chance to govern yet. Well, now he's been out there at least for about a quarter. He's been governing. What is the current opinions? My understanding is he's up on both the approval side and the disapproval side.
That's right. And that's because in January when we did this poll, he'd been in office, I think it was 7 or 8 days. So not a lot of time to build a record. 38% said they didn't know whether they approved or didn't in January. Now that number's down to 15% who haven't formed an opinion. And the result is that both approval and disapproval have gone up. He's now at 47 approve, 37 disapprove. And that's a little more rise on the disapproval side, but one of the reasons for that is in January, a substantial number of Republicans and independents were withholding judgment of him. As they come to form opinions, certainly among the Republicans, the odds are that they form more negative views of him, and that tends to raise the disapproval. From the governor's point of view, though, he's been in for, 3 months or so, and to be up plus 10 at this stage is not a bad showing.
Well, Charles, it feels weird not to ask you how Scotty Wanker's doing, but I got to ask you, we got 2 U.S. senators. We've got Tammy Baldwin. We've got Ron Johnson. And Tammy's more popular, but Ron has a lower disapproval rating. Explain what I'm talking about, please, Charles.
That's right. And what we've seen with Tammy Baldwin is this is favorable, unfavorable ratings, and she's a +1 right now on that. But her favorability over the last couple of years, including during the chunks of the campaign last year, were a little bit more positive than negative. The thing that's different about Johnson is over 25% say they don't have an opinion of him. That's a much lower number for Baldwin. So people who have a favorable view of Ron Johnson maybe aren't being counterbalanced by negative views because more people just don't have a view of him. We've seen this in the past, that as we get into an election year, whether it's Johnson or Baldwin, the people make up their mind, they form an opinion, excuse me, but then 12 months after the election, they've forgotten again, and their don't-knows go back up into the 20s. And that's true of both of them, though Baldwin has over time maintained a little bit more permanent visibility than Johnson has.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Charles Franklin, he's the director of the Marquette University Law School poll, dropping today, and he joins us on the phone. Charles, wanted to ask you, we see testimony today and yesterday, Attorney General Bob Barr taking some heat from Bill Barr, thank you, taking some heat from the Democrats. You did ask some questions about Mueller and the investigation, and apparently, the Republicans are now down, or they're at least more favorable towards Mueller? Weird how that happens. What does that mean?
It is funny how that happens, but Republicans went from 12% high confidence in Mueller to 42%, I believe it is. A really maybe predictable, but still really noteworthy amount of change in just a little time. That previous reading was back in October, by the way. Democrats, not surprisingly, reduced their positive view of Mueller, though they went from in the 50s down to a lower level of approval, but not super low. This is totally predictable, that when somebody tells you news you wanted to hear, like Republicans, you suddenly think they're great guys. Democrats haven't turned completely on Mueller, but they're clearly more skeptical. What I liked about the results for Mueller, though, or the broader investigation, and, obviously the caveat that we haven't seen the actual report yet, but we asked people what they thought, and they thought that Russia interfered. That's a conclusion of the report, and one that they excuse me, I have a police or a fire truck behind me I need to get out of the way of. Anyway, people think Russia intervened. They think that Trump did not collude, which is also apparently a conclusion of the report. They're exactly divided on whether Trump tried to obstruct the investigation. That one's 45-45 on obstruction. And then finally, support for impeachment proceedings has come down a bit in the aftermath of the report, but that's also in the aftermath of Nancy Pelosi speaking out against impeachment at this time. So there's more than one thing going on there.
Charles, I'm going to skip over the support for the Democratic candidates. I'll let Crudy tackle that one. Regarding the state of Wisconsin, a couple of issues I want to talk about. Marijuana, Charles. The legal weed question, the recreational, medicinal weed question, seems like there's some support out there kind of reaffirming what we already knew from last election cycle. What'd you find out, Charles?
Exactly. This was the first time we've asked about medical marijuana, but when we've asked about legalizing marijuana without any other kinds of description, just legalize marijuana, that's up to 59% support now. 4 or 5 years ago, that was down in the low 40s.
Wow.
It has really built over time, and we see it in national data as well as here in the state. Real movement and opinion about that. But on the medical side, 83% support legalizing medical marijuana. So that's an enormous number. It'd be pretty hard to get it much higher than that. I think this is a case where public opinion has moved faster on these issues, legalization plus medical, than political opinion from elected officials. You know, Evers is reluctant to embrace full legalization, even as he supports medical. Republican legislators are not interested in going there at all. But even a majority of Republicans, in fact, a substantial majority of Republicans support medical legalization, and a big chunk of Republicans now are even supporting legalization in general. So this looks like one of those things that's only a matter of time before public opinion becomes too overwhelming for elected officials to resist.
Charles, I realize it's a sample size of one, but how long? How much time are we talking about here, sir?
I'm sorry, say how long?
Well, Charles, I'm looking at the 83%, and I'm thinking saw that number as stunning. I don't recall an issue that has 83% bipartisan support in the state of Wisconsin, any topic, bar none. And yet, Charles, if we listen to Scott Fitzgerald, the Senate Majority Leader, he doesn't see the support. In all likelihood, he will need to get his caucus behind this issue, or despite 83% of the public wanting legalized medicinal marijuana, it's not going to happen anytime soon, sir.
Well, it won't until Republican leaders, not just Fitzgerald, see that this is something that spills over into Republican ranks. It's not just a Democratic issue. I don't know when that will happen. I have seen Republican political figures, maybe they're a little more on the libertarian side, but who say, look, this is a train that's leaving the station, and our Republican Party is going to have to get on board with it. You know, it's possible that these numbers would change if we had a big discussion about what the public health benefits and risks are. You might imagine those numbers moving a bit. But that's why I say it takes a while. We'll see where it goes. This is not too different from same-sex marriage, which public opinion moved really strongly on for 15 or 20 years. Took a long time, but then once it reached the tipping point, you saw an acceptance, if not a full embrace, of same-sex marriage a few years ago.
Don't tell that to the Hagedorn voters.
Charles, one other issue before I throw it back to Crudy, the criminal justice issues. And talk about a number that was really stunning. You discussed mandatory minimums, expunging or clearing records, but this one I thought was really interesting. Expanding job training for prisoners, supported by 88%, opposed by 9%. This should be a no-brainer for any politician. What else did you find out, and what do you think that means?
Yeah, even more popular than medical marijuana, actually. I think this is really interesting because I'm old enough to remember debates in the 90s that said education and job training for prisoners was bad because if you were on the outside, you had to pay for those kinds of things. So why would you give them to prisoners for free? I think what you see is how the public has shifted in its views of this to now saying, look, we got a problem with reentry, and why wouldn't you try to equip prisoners for successful reentry from prison? But it is a remarkable shift from the 90s that where opinion was so reluctant to provide that kind of thing for prisoners.
Marquette University Law School poller Charles Franklin on the phone with us for a few more minutes. Charles, Medicaid expansion. The people of Wisconsin want the government to take the federal money. Obviously, Tony Evers had made this avocation, but Republicans are still pushing back. 70%, Charles, did I get that right?
Yeah, it's a big number, and actually it's been a big number. We've asked about it off and on since the Affordable Care Act passed. And it's varied from the high 50s into the 70s, but it's been pretty substantial the whole time. This is one of those cases where the parties are just so dug in on health care that it's pretty hard to imagine a decision by Republicans to support it. If you contrast it with the marijuana or the prison issue, those are areas where, look around the country, conservative Republican governors have embraced prison reform, but they're generally not going to embrace taking the federal money for Medicaid, even though there is lots of support for it.
Charles, got to ask you, top of the ticket, Democratic presidential race. Can't get through all the candidates, but let's talk about top of the ticket. Yeah. Wisconsin is still feeling the burn, Charles.
It is, and more so. Burn. Let me say, the way we ask the question is, would this person be a top choice, an acceptable choice, someone you wouldn't support, or haven't you heard about him? Well, no surprise, the top of the ticket are the three candidates that are best known: Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Elizabeth Warren. Then you fall off a lot in how well known people are. Bernie was behind Biden in January, but has picked up 9 percentage points in support, jumping from 23 to 32, a top choice. Biden's dropped off by 3 and now is just a little bit behind Sanders. And then you drop down a bit before you get to Elizabeth Warren, and then everybody else. We asked about 9 other people. They're down almost all in single digits. But Sanders definitely is benefiting in this poll compared to where he was 3 months ago.
Charles Franklin, I suspect Wisconsin being a battleground state predictably in 2020 will have lots more Marquette University Law School polling, and we hope you, again, extend the generosity of your time to the Devil's Advocates. Always love when you come around, Charles.
Always fun to talk to you guys. I'll try to keep you supplied.
Charles, I got one last quick question. How did you oversample Republicans in this poll, sir?
Hey, guys, I spent 15 minutes explaining that in the presentation today.
Damn it, I should have been there.
Get over it. You just got to get over it.
Watching some of these electoral outcomes, I'm beginning to think Wisconsin might be a little more Republican than I think.
Well, we've got it almost exactly evenly balanced, and I think you look at Tuesday or even look at the governor's race decided by 1 point or Trump by 3/4 of a point. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that we really are an evenly divided state.
Yes, sir. Charles Franklin, our friend, Marquette University Law School poll extraordinaire. Thank you, Charles. Have a great day. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates on the other side.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in the former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
It may not require a textbook, but it's filled with valuable lessons. It may not take place in a classroom, but it's an ideal environment for learning. It may not involve a diploma, but it can help prepare Wisconsin's young people for life. It's high school sports. High school sports can play a critical role in a student's overall education. In fact, studies show that students that participate in high school sports are more likely to enjoy greater levels of achievement in their academic lives. If you think high school sports are only about competition, think again. Better yet, Think about attending a high school sporting event in your community. You'll be amazed by what you see. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Dominic Bernie Sanders coming back to my hometown, Madison, Wisconsin. We will broadcast it live thanks to our friends at Teamsters Local 200.
Crudy, if there's a political party in Wisconsin, you know the Devil's Advocates have to be there. Join us for a rally with Bernie in Madison this Friday, April 12th. Broadcast begins at 3. Event starts at 5 at James Madison Park.
Special WRRT 1510 a.m., WTTN 1580 a.m. broadcast brought to you with limited commercial interruptions. Thank you, Teamsters Local 200.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, the political party line. Talk or text 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our friend Charles Franklin, the pollster extraordinaire at the Marquette University Law School poll. You know I had to get that last oversample Republicans question in there, but I'm beginning to believe, Dom, this state's filthy with those damn Republicans.
Crudy, just to wrap up his point on the polling, since January of 2017, the long-term partisan balance, including those who lean to a party in the Marquette poll, has been 45% Republican and 45% Democratic with 9% independent.
Just depends on whether or not we turn ours out, right, Dom?
That's right.
Foxconn, Journal Times reporting Mount Pleasant Dateline Village trustees Monday voted to allow the leasing of portions of Foxconn development area to local farmers. What?
What? That means there's no factory today?
This is getting a little confusing, Dom. The board voted in favor of leasing 966 acres. You don't care who's leasing it, about $180 per acre. They're going to draw about, let me do the math, about $182,000 in revenue leasing out this land. Now, Area 2 is located south of Highway 11, east of Interstate 94, west of Highway H, and north of Braun Road. You don't care which areas, but Fleiss sold his property to the village for $1.675 million in August of 18. Each lease lasts for only a year, and each party, including the village, can terminate the lease with a 30-day notice. Now, if you're growing crops in the field, Tom, 30 days is not going to be enough time. Right. But this is very troubling. Here's a quote. I'm a little uncomfortable that the village is becoming a land broker here. That was said by Feast. He is the trustee, Gary Feast, said he did not like the idea of the village leasing land that was originally purchased for the purpose of Foxconn development. Down a little farther, village president Dave DeGroot said Feast if he would be okay with the weeds growing on the property, to which Feast replied, I guess to a degree of principle, yes, I'll suffer through a year, Feast said. It just, if we buy all this land, remove the people from it, and now we're making money from it, I'm a little uneasy with that. What about building the factory over there? Right. What happened to a factory? What happened to the jobs? You know the credit rating on Mount Pleasant has been lowered. They've so indebted themselves acquiring land on behalf of a corporation so they can become what? Property managers on some farm leases? Are you freaking kidding me? Folks, we're the Devil's Advocates. We never kid. We're always serious right here.
Not always.
Often serious. Sometimes serious. 60% of the time we're serious as a heart attack. Come back with us. Phone lines open. You can join us. 844-967-2789.
I just had to let it go.
Want to see the super sexiest political show on earth? Check out the Devil's Advocates on YouTube.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Hundo P. Hundo P. Adjective. Short for being 100% sure or certain. As in, if we get a puppy, I'll Hundo P always walk it.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez, I got to ask you, in what percentage did the fact that Real Resistance Radio, WRD 1510, the fact that you can come after Barr with us on Brady Street, Tom, how much did that factor into the site selection of Milwaukee, sir?
There's that old saying, what's good for General Motors is good for America. What's good for Resistance Radio is good for Wisconsin and good for America. So it was huge.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad. Republican lawmakers in Madison are criticizing the plan by Governor Evers to spend $40 million to replace lead pipes around the state because they say too much money would go to Milwaukee. Judge Lisa Neubauer this morning conceded the race for a seat on Wisconsin's Supreme Court to her opponent, Brian Hagedorn. The Devil's Advocates will be at the Bernie rally in Madison this Friday. The event is set to start at 5 p.m. at James Madison Park at 614 East Gorham Street. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison: Wednesday, rain-snow mix today, highs in the upper 30s. Tonight, rainy and windy, lows in the low 30s. Thursday, rainy and windy, highs in the upper 40s, and Friday, partly sunny, highs again in the upper 40s. For News Talk 1510 and 1580 AM, my name is Keith Gostad.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We are in the midst of the Hump Day Happy Hour, Dom. It's slippery out there. Be careful on the road. Snow here in Madison. I don't know what you're getting in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Dom.
the snow has started. It's not really on the roads yet, but it's starting to stick around.
I tell you what, it is entirely white out my window here in Madison on the west side. And Dominic, it's a confusing time of the year. I am confused whether we're in spring or winter still. And also, I am confused. Is Foxconn proceeding? Are they building a factory?
Sure, they said so many times, and then also backtracked, and then recommitted.
Dominic, your buddy and mine, Kuchka, found a little piece at The Verge. Foxconn is confusing the hell out of Wisconsin. Hell, it's even affecting the weather.
John DeZia, sorry, John.
I'm sure you got that right.
From TheVerge.com. Thank you, Kuchka. I'll start it off. It's a little bit longer, but it's great storytelling. It gives us the background, and I'll start here. It was the summer in Wisconsin, and Foxconn seemed to be everywhere, but also nowhere at all. Starting last June, officials with the Taiwanese tech manufacturing giant began popping up in all corners of the state and announcing new projects. It had been almost a year since then-Governor Scott Walker offered the company a subsidy package that came to a total of $4.5 billion. Both Walker, who was in the midst of a re-election campaign, and Foxconn, which had just confirmed that it would build a far smaller factory than it had initially promised, seemed eager to make a good impression. First, there was Louis Wu,
Mr. Foxconn,
special assistant to Foxconn Terry Go, announcing a new headquarters and innovation center in Milwaukee. Days later, was standing in a field 40 minutes south in Mount Pleasant, digging gold shovels into dirt with Walker, Paul Ryan, and President Trump, who declared Foxconn's factory the eighth wonder of the world. Then it was off to Green Bay, where Foxconn announced another innovation center, and then Eau Claire, where Foxconn announced two more, a full technology hub. Next came a $100 million gift to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Venture Fund, and competitions to design the innovation centers with fast turnarounds, just 2 weeks to submit proposals, and plans to open in just months. As summer turned to fall, Foxconn kept going. An innovation center in Racine and another groundbreaking for a Foxconn expansion at a nearby technical college. More branded baseball caps, more gold shovels. One observer quipped that Foxconn had created jobs in the Wisconsin events business at least. Then the announcements stopped. In January, work at the Mount Pleasant factory came to a halt, and Foxconn officials began to publicly waffle about their plans. In the span of a single week, Wu said that the company wouldn't build a factory, then that whatever Foxconn was building cannot be simply described as a factory. Then, after a call with Trump, that Foxconn would build a factory after all. Throughout its gyrations, Foxconn maintained that it would create 13,000 jobs, though what those 13,000 people would be doing shifted gradually from manufacturing to research into what Foxconn calls its AI 8K plus 5G ecosystem. Other than buzzwords for high-resolution screens and high-speed cell networks, what this ecosystem is has never been fully explained. In February, a Foxconn executive cheerfully likened the company's vague morphing plans to designing and building an airplane mid-flight.
Dominic, I got to admit, I've always been quite confused by that analogy as well.
Right. And Crudy, such statements have not been particularly reassuring to residents of Wisconsin, where state and local governments have already taken very concrete actions to prepare the way for what was supposed to be an enormous manufacturing facility. Taxpayers have already spent more than $300 million on road work, infrastructure, and land acquisition related to the project. In August, Moody's downgraded Mount Pleasant's credit rating over the extreme levels of debt it took on for the area's $763 million incentive package, costs that have since grown closer to $1 billion, in part because it had to take out higher interest long-term loans after Foxconn's plans changed. Dozens of residents have been relocated, some under threat of eminent domain.
Dominic, adding to the confusion is the comical level of secrecy that shrouding the Foxconn project. The company almost never grants interviews. Even Mount Pleasant's village board is supposed to route all Foxconn-related questions through a public relations firm. Getting answers is so difficult that a local TV reporter recently drove to the house of village president Dave DeGroot, who, hiding behind his half-closed door, told the reporter, "Get off my lawn!" Mount Pleasant residents engaged in criminology based on overheard conversations at local bars and which contractors are seen coming and going from the site, which is heavily patrolled by private security. Even then, appearances can be misleading. Most of the construction that was visible from the roads in Mount Pleasant this winter wasn't being done by Foxconn, but by government contractors building roads and utilities. As for the innovation centers announced across the state, Foxconn has bought property, But beyond that, much is unclear, including what an innovation center actually is. By mid-March, it had been weeks without an update on the project, and the state officials I had been talking to were mystified as to what was happening. I decided to go to Wisconsin and see how things were going. After so many events in half a dozen cities, surely I would find a Foxconn somewhere. Here's a quote, Tom. Milwaukee is where we will transition our AI 8K 5G vision into reality, Wu said in a press release last summer, announcing Foxconn's purchase of a 7-story brutalist office building downtown. The space would be renovated to include an innovation center and an office employing about 500 people, and work was set to begin in just 2 months. When people come to Wisconsin to visit Foxconn, the Milwaukee headquarters will probably be one of the first stops they make, Wu said. So what on earth is the Foxconn AI 8K 5G ecosystem? From what I could tell, it's a bunch of empty buildings and a lot of questions. Taking Wu's advice, I started in Milwaukee. When I arrived in the second week of March, Foxconn signs were being added to the corners of the building, but it appeared otherwise unchanged. The ground floors consisted of glass-walled conference rooms. They were never occupied when I passed over the next 2 days. Their whiteboards remained immaculate. A long green Ethernet cable coiled over a table never moved. I walked into the front lobby, a small space undecorated except for a narrow strip of Foxconn spangled wallpaper behind a receptionist's desk in the corner. The receptionist politely declined my request to speak with someone from Foxconn, directing me to a media email. When I told her I tried it already and received no response, she assured me Foxconn people do exist, but finding them would take some investigating. When I tried the email again, a publicist said that they were aware of my visit and directed me to a recent press release. I headed back outside and waited for people to leave the building. Most were actually employees of Barr financial services firm that's leasing 3 floors of the building while their office around the corner is being renovated. They, too, were curious what the Foxconn people were up to and offered what information they could, such as they were often 5 to 10 of them in the cafeteria. Well, there's some headlines for you, Dom. People eat lunch. They've certainly given us a lot of talk about the last few years, said one of Barrett's employees. Now they're saying they're investing again. We'll see. That's what Trump says, right? We'll see. The Foxconn employees I approached invariably said they couldn't talk to the press, though they were all very nice about it. One even shouted, "Oh no, sorry," while literally running down the sidewalk away from me. But they held the line. A trio in their 20s who were waiting for a cab couldn't even confirm or deny that they worked at Foxconn. What I can confirm, there are Foxconn people there. I've seen their purple lanyards, and I've seen the panic in their eyes when I introduce myself as a journalist. A search of LinkedIn and local job boards indicate that there are likely a few dozen of them, mostly recruiters, project managers, and concierge employees. We need some of those. When Milwaukee Alderman Robert Bauman heard that Foxconn was going to have a headquarters in his town, he thought the company was going to actually build something. He'd been critical of the deal, but thought a new high-rise wouldn't be a bad thing to have downtown. The goodwill was the goal, he now believes. They were increasingly tuned into the politics in Wisconsin and were increasingly aware that maybe this deal isn't going over so well. We've got to give the appearance that we're doing good things throughout the state, he said, imagining Foxconn thinking, let's run around and buy select buildings in Green Bay and Eau Claire and downtown Milwaukee, sort of increase our public relations a little bit. Indeed, the Innovation Center spree occurred at a time when polling was showing the Foxconn project to be unpopular, particularly in regions far from the factory site. This was an ominous sign for Walker, and he was quick to tout the centers in his campaign, attending the announcements and following them up with local ads. The Foxconn deal was always inextricably political, pushed by the president who promised to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., involving a company with a lot to lose in the trade war, cited in the district of then Speaker of the House and the state of a governor who was running on job creation. The project's awkward limbo phase has been political as well. Walker lost the gubernatorial election to Democrat Tony Evers, who criticized the deal during the campaign, but stopped short of saying he'd scrap it, instead promising to hold Foxconn accountable. I sure hope Tony's up to that task, Dom. But before leaving office, Walker undermined Evers' powers over the project by signing a bill that moved the Foxconn liaison out of the governor's administration and into the state's Economic Development Corporation, Walker's WEDIC, like WEDIC, and prevented Evers from appointing a new WEDIC CEO until September. So far, Evers has taken a cautious approach. Wisconsin Assembly Speaker Dom's friend Robin Voss, Mount Pleasant Board Director Dave DeGroot, and other proponents of the project didn't respond to requests for comment, but supporters of the deal often defend Foxconn's changing plans by saying the contract was meant to provide Foxconn with flexibility. When asked what leads WEDIC to believe Foxconn will build an LCD factory after previously saying it couldn't do so competitively, spokesperson Kelly Lights replied, Foxconn has made this commitment and construction is well underway, except it's not. It's like building Trump's wall, right, buddy?
Meanwhile, some state Democrats have grown so skeptical of the project that they don't even see Republican moves like the lame duck bill as attempts to protect Foxconn. They see a plot to weaponize the deal's inevitable implosion. It's the Midwest Fire Festival straight up, said State Rep. Jonathan Brostoff when I met him at a diner in Milwaukee. All sizzle, no steak. A pugnacious Democrat with a frizzy mane, the result of refusing to cut his hair until his bill improving sign language translator availability is passed. Brostoff thinks the project is 100% scam, that state Republicans know it, and that the reason they undermined Evers was so the ticking time bomb of fiscal irresponsibility explodes on his watch. He points to the speed with which Republicans blamed Evers when Foxconn said it wouldn't build a factory, but Foxconn's plans are so amorphous that it doesn't even make a good political cudgel. 2 days later, Foxconn said it was staying. The secrecy and vagueness are frustrating to critics. How do you prove that Foxconn won't build an enormous LCD factory during an industry glut or create a research campus larger than MIT in rural Wisconsin, other than by pointing out what experts and evenly occasionally Foxconn executives say it makes no sense? State House Minority Leader Gordon Hintz recently appointed himself to the board of WEDIC, and Foxconn continued promises of 13,000 jobs makes him palpably furious. Speaking in low measured tones in his Madison office as he packed for a trip, he said the state needs to right-size the project to something realistic, likely a few hundred research jobs, and that Foxconn needs to be honest about its plans. For something that had a 25-year payback, building a factory because the president wants you to for reasons that have nothing to do with market viability is insane. Hintz believes Foxconn is trying to slow walk the project until 2020, continuing to use it to win Trump's goodwill in the trade war and waiting to see who's elected. For Foxconn watchers, the Milwaukee headquarters feels like a distillation of the whole ordeal. Foxconn did buy a building. It puts signs up, and there are some people there with Foxconn lanyards, but it's a significantly diminished version of what was promised and strangely secret for a project that began with such public fanfare. It's become something of a running joke. When I told people I'd been to the headquarters, they would often grin and ask what happened before recounting their own experiences of getting turned away at the lobby. Brostoff calls it a ghost town, an empty storefront. Matt Flynn, who ran in the Democratic gubernatorial primary and is trying to raise money for a suit claiming elements of the Foxconn contract are unconstitutional, calls it a Pokemon office and likens it to a flimsy stage set on a television western. A local observer gave me a tip from his own attempts to discern what exactly is going on inside the headquarters. If you go to the top floor of the parking garage across the street at dusk, you can see into the Foxconn floors. I did so and saw what looks like a normal office, and there were at least 6 people inside.
That's close to 13,000, right, Tom?
If there is a showcase of innovations in the Milwaukee headquarters, as Wu had promised, Foxconn has made it extremely difficult to find. Public records indicate that not much has been done with the space. Permits have been taken out for about $60,000 worth of renovations since Foxconn moved in, mostly to Baird's floors, the ventilation system, and the elevator. When I called the architect at the head of the firm that sources said had won the redesign project and told him I was working on a story about Foxconn, he promptly hung up. Subsequent attempts to reach him were not returned. Next, I drove 4 hours north to a college town of Eau Claire, where last July, Walker and Foxconn's Alex Jung announced that Foxconn would be opening 2 offices. One would be an incubator and laboratory for next-generation technological solutions, while the other would be a co-working space, part of a talent and innovation network for the AI 8K 5G ecosystem. Young said the technology hub would be operational early this year. In September, Foxconn announced a design competition with proposals due 2 weeks later.
Dominic, this is an extremely long read at theverge.com. We encourage you, go find it on the Devil's Advocates Facebook page. Read it there. But ultimately, it's very confusing because Foxconn lies. Scott Walker was lying. And now it's Tony's deal, we think, and Tony's supposed to be, communicating with the Foxconn. But if Foxconn lies, then you can't trust them, Tony. And I think ultimately, 6 to 13 jobs statewide, that might be on the high end of expectations at this point. Come back with us. We have high expectations for you, our audience. You got something to say, you better start dialing now. 844-967-2789.
People say Foxconn will help Wisconsin win the 21st century.
If this factory goes under, the whole town goes under.
And that's when the whores come in.
No, I'm going to stay for a while. How about that? Freedom.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
3, 2, 1. Oh no. Which button am I?
When every second counts, you can't wing it.
Guys, a little help up here?
In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So make a family home fire escape plan. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year so everyone knows what to do when they hear. Prepare your family at ready.gov/fire drill. Brought to you by FEMA, the Ad Council, and Make Safe Happen.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Knowing your breasts can save your life. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susan G. Komen and the Ad Council.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin Uprising. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, last segment of the day. So if you've got something to say, please do it now. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I hope a few of our listeners are taking us along as they drive over to UW Milwaukee. Our earlier guest, Dan Kaufman, author of The Fall of Wisconsin and contributor at the New Yorker and the New York Times. He is giving a presentation tonight, 6 p.m. to 7:30 at the Golda Meir Library. That's on the 4th floor Conference Center. Once again, over at UW Milwaukee. That's on East Hartford. Worth the Google.
We got some callers. Let's get to it. Again, the piece in The Verge. Go check it out. It is long, but it's very descriptive. It's very... It's telling. This is a huge concern. I really appreciate this piece, and I would recommend everybody read it, especially the politicians and the supporters. Let's get some callers in here. Brad from Madison, you are up. Thanks for calling today, Brad. What do you got for us?
Governor Tony Evers is moderate. He's reasonable. He's trying to do his job. Robin Vos, Scott Fitzgerald, I believe they should be referred to as drama queens, because everything that Tony Evers does, they freak out, they throw their hands up in the air, and they just have a conniption. And it's fake. And they're not even Republicans. They're like puppets of the money, the billionaires, and the WMC. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brad, from Madison. Curdy, any thoughts on that? Listen, I totally agree. I think the outrage, when we hear the clip from Fitzgerald talk about the fake outrage of the Dems, about the fake outrage of the right. I mean, you guys went and laid down this foundation when you tried to do the lame duck coup, and now we as citizens of the state, we got to deal with the repercussions. We got to fund, the attorneys to defend this thing or to fight. I mean, either way, this is all laid upon us. Why? Because Republicans cannot give up. The thought of giving up any ounce of power, it just drives them crazy. So they got to make this stuff up. They got to stir the pot, and as most Republicans do, they're masters of projection, and then tell everybody it's everybody else.
Dominic, Marquette University Law School polling dropped earlier today. We didn't talk about this topic with our buddy Charles Franklin, but 25% of those polled say legislative leaders, think Voss, think Fitzgerald, are trying to cooperate with Tony Evers. 25% think that the Republicans want to actually play ball with Evers, while 57% say they're not interested in cooperating, Dom. Now, the job rating currently for Tony Evers, 47% approval, 37% disapproval, but the electorate can at least see that Tony Evers is out there trying to accomplish something. The Republicans, much less so, my friend.
Do we have, did the Marquette University Law School poll ask about the popularity or approval ratings of Voss or Fitzgerald or the legislature? Do we have any of those kinds of numbers? Do we know where people
Yes,
think?
I've got them right here.
I would love to hear what people say according to Marquette University Law School polling.
Well, let's talk about the Republican legislative leaders. According to the earlier today polling, Dom, favorability ratings of elected officials. Scott Fitzgerald's your buddy. 22% favorable, 22% unfavorable.
Always even.
46% haven't heard enough to form an opinion.
What?
Well, to know him is to not like him.
But this is also telling. 46% don't. I mean, this guy's been in office a long time. The Fitzgeralds have been around a long time. Is anybody even paying attention? Do they even know?
Well, I would say anyone that listens to the devil's advocates with any sort of consistency, if nothing else, Dom, they've heard the P for PPC ads
yes.
encouraging you to call Scott Fitzgerald and tell him Wisconsin favors legalizing at least medicinal marijuana. Hell, it's 83%. Dom, the other Republican leader, Robin Voss, he is at a 14% favorable rating, 21% unfavorable. So 50% higher on his unfavorable than his favorable, and 56% haven't heard enough about him.
Wow.
Well, you'll hear more about Robin Voss. I strongly suspect he'll be running for governor in 2022. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Don't forget Dan Kaufman over at UW Milwaukee, East Hartford Ave. That event starting in just a few minutes. Also want to thank our friend Charles Franklin, director of the Marquette University Law School poll. A good guy, but constantly overpolling Republicans. And again, that might be because this state is filthy with Republicans.
Since 2017, the Marquette University Law School poll has 47 and 47 Dems and Republicans.
Dominic, it's time for a purge. Have a great night, everyone.
Nobody ever goes in. Nobody ever comes out.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Brad Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide